Chapter 886. Holofin, what are you waiting for? Dominic shouted. Yes, I'll go right now. Mr. Charnon, may I know how much it costs to control this person and treat me? Does he have to die? Charnon asked. Dominic's eyes flashed. He seemed to be hesitating. Of course, Holofin immediately shouted. Let him die a horrible death. $2 million, Charnon said. Dominic wanted to object, but when he saw the green eyes of the bodyguards, he swallowed his words. His heart was bleeding, but in order to treat his leg as soon as possible, this bit of money was like feeding a dog. Dominic had thought about spending a few $1,000,000 to treat Qin Zhao anyway. As for Qin Zhao's life or death, he didn't care. Then let me know when you find that person's information. Mr. Charnon, how can we find you? You call this number. The entire supernatural organization had gone crazy. His bonus was gone, and so was his vacation. How could this be? If they couldn't find the culprit, there would be no bonus or vacation. Everyone's heart was burning with anger. Aduz was also a part of the organization. The last time Qin Zhao was this angry was when Moore and Morid were attacked by his family. Everyone knew that Qin Zhao was really angry this time. However, no matter how they searched, they couldn't find any clues. The members gathered for a meeting. Do you have any clues? There are no clues at all. Now Immerse and his doppelganger are searching the streets with magic power testing equipment. However, this method was like looking for a needle in a haystack. It might also cause unnecessary trouble. After all, if they found a person with magic and got questioned for no reason, it might be fine if the person had a good temper. If the person had a bad temper, they would probably fight on the spot. Call Moore back. Don't let him be so reckless, Gaia said. And it's dangerous for him to search alone. How can we find him if we don't do this? First, find out what spell he used, Gaia said. Everyone's gaze fell on Alice. She was a magic encyclopedia. There were countless magic books in her bloodline. Let me search, said Eris, closing her eyes. After a while, Alice opened her eyes again. Right, other than green eyes, what other characteristics are there? Unparalleled strength, control others. Green eyes, immense strength, ability to control others. Alice closed her eyes again. A minute later, she opened them again. Found similar information. There are about 30 related spells. Right, there's also the ghost servant. Dillas and Crown were also listening. As one of the people involved, they could not stay out of it. Alice searched again. Finally, Alice found it. Puppet magic. Alice said, first, a ghostly servant puppet is created. Then, through branding magic, the ghostly servant is combined with a spellcaster. Just like a marionette, the ghostly servant can enter the body of a person without magic power at will. The controlled person will be able to exert power far beyond what they should have. However, it will cause great harm to the body. The spellcaster cannot be within 100 meters of the ghostly servant. Gaia said, in other words, at the time of the incident, the spellcaster was actually in the hotel. Is there any more information? You can see the strength of the ghostly servant controlled by the puppeteer from its eyes. Its eyes emit green light, so it's the lowest level ghostly servant puppet. Next is crimson light, so it's a high-level ghostly servant. There's also a type of puppet monster that emits black light. Gaia continued, any more information? Puppeteers must have their own puppets with them. In other words, if we find a spiritualist traveling alone, it probably won't be the puppeteer we're looking for. We mainly look for those with more than one spiritualist. Then we'll look in this direction. We can't go alone. We need at least a team of 3, Gaia said. If we find a puppeteer, don't act rashly. Inform the other teams immediately, or Qin directly. Qin, what are you doing? There's a party at my house. Come and drink. Raspa called Qin Zhao. I'm not in a good mood. I don't want to go, Qin Zhao said. What's not good? After a few glasses of wine, you'll forget all the unpleasant things. I don't want to go. Darling, did someone ask you to go out and play? If that's the case, then go ahead. Just then, Failai walked over. She was fully equipped and even pushed a stroller. Little Jerlin was in the stroller. Are you going out? Chen Zhao asked. Yes, I'm going to take Jerlin shopping. Oh, then be careful, Chen Zhao said. Black Ma, White Ma, go shopping with Fei Lai. Black Ma and White Ma immediately ran to Fei Lai's side excitedly. Their favorite thing to do was to go shopping. Chen Zhao was the only one left at home. He'd wanted to play with Jerlin and then spend some time with Fei Lai, but they'd both gone shopping. Feeling bored, Chen Zhao also drove to Rasfa's house. When he reached Rasfa's house, Chen Zhao was stopped. The security guard at the door was new and didn't know Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao also drove a taxi and didn't have an invitation, so he stopped him at the door. After a call, Paul ran out and let Chen Zhao in. The security guard looked at Chen Zhao with a bitter expression. Were all rich people so pretentious nowadays? Who would know that you were a VIP if you drove a small truck? Chen Zhao was also dumbfounded by Rasfa's guests. He couldn't be bothered to talk to these strangers. He grabbed a bottle of wine and sat on the beach to bask in the sun.
Hi.
A girl in a bikini walked over. Her lower body was completely covered. She had long, wavy blonde hair and a pretty face with some baby fat. The girl looked at Chen Zhao. Are you alone? Yeah. Do we know each other? Chen Zhao asked, glancing at the girl. No, I don't know anyone here, the girl said. But we can get to know each other. I'm Brandon.
Oh.
Shouldn't you introduce yourself too? Chen Zhao, from China. Why are you alone? Same as you. I don't know anyone here, Chen Zhao said casually and downed a glass of wine. It's so noisy, Brandon said. I don't like the environment here either. Did you come to this party with Mom and Dad? Chapter 887. Judging from her figure, her 36D breasts were indeed a sign of maturity. But what's with this baby face? Pour me a glass of wine. You're really an adult? Chen Zhao was very doubtful. Then, who did you come with? Asked the big-chested Brandon. I snuck in myself. Do you believe me? Brandon really did believe him. Looking at his clothes, he indeed didn't look like a guest here. How did you get in? I went around the beach, Chen Zhao said. If I go around the Pebble Beach, it's easy. I can get some food and a bottle of wine. There's food and wine, and I can trick some girls. Then why are you telling me the truth? Don't you know I drugged the wine? Pooh, you really drugged it? What position do you like? Brandon screamed and ran away. After 2 steps, Brandon realized something was wrong. She turned to look at the smirking Chen Zhao. You lied to me? That depends on how you define the word. Do you believe that I'll get people to catch you?
No.
Even if the people from the manor come, they'll just throw me out. I've eaten and drunk the wine. What can they do to me? Brandon was speechless. She'd never seen someone so shameless. Just then, an old woman ran over. Is that your mother over there? No, it's my manager, Ms. Lansky. Chen Zhao looked at the old woman and knew that she wasn't a good person. Lance ran in front of Brandon and said in an overbearing manner, Brandon, why are you still here chatting with irrelevant people? I brought you to this party not to have fun.
Come with me.
Brandon shrugged helplessly. She looked back at Chen Zhao and waved her hand. It's a pity that we're already married. Otherwise, this chick would really be able to get her hands on us. Chen Zhao found it a pity, but Fei Lai was still pregnant at home. If he messed around outside, he'd be a scumbag. Brandon followed Lansky back to the mansion. There were already many guests. Lansky's gaze wandered around. Finally, her eyes lit up. Stephen. However, Stephen was talking to another actor next to him at the moment. Lansky glanced at the confused Brandon. Go up and greet Mr. Stephen. But I don't know Mr. Stephen, Brandon said hesitantly. Don't be so long-winded. Who doesn't know each other? Take this cup of wine. Brandon was a little afraid of Lance. He walked toward Stephen obediently and stopped a few times when he was a few meters away from Stephen. Hello, Mr. Stephen. Brandon had just opened his mouth to greet Lansky when Lansky purposely pushed him from behind. Startled, Brandon swung his hand forward and spilled the wine on Stephen. Stephen's face immediately darkened, but it was not convenient for him to flare up in public. He glared at Brandon and turned to leave. Mr. Stephen, yes, yes. Stephen didn't even give Brandon a chance to apologize. Under the guidance of the servant, he went to change his clothes. You can't even handle such a small matter. Lance looked at Brandon in disdain. What the hell are you doing? Brandon was thin-skinned to begin with, and he had no experience in such situations. Do you know what will happen to you if you offend Mr. Stephen?
What will happen to me?
Don't even think about working in Hollywood anymore. One word from Stephen, and even the smallest film company won't hire you to make a movie. Remember that A-list actor, Libel? He's the best portrayal. Brandon's face paled in fear, and he was about to cry. Of course, she knew how pitiful Libel was. In her eyes, Libel was a big star. But because he offended Stephen, he ended up with no film. What's more, he was just an unknown actor. I know a film company. Maybe they can help. Aren't they afraid of offending Mr. Stephen?
Come with me.
I'll introduce you to the producer. Brandon followed Lance to a small courtyard. A few people were sitting there. One of them was a man in his 40s, and the others were sexy women. They were like stars surrounding the moon, surrounding the man. Hi, Mr. Holmeston, Lance greeted him. Holmeston raised his head and glanced at Brandon, who was behind Lance. Holmeston's eyes lit up. Hi, miss, come and sit here. Lance tugged at Brandon, and Brandon reluctantly sat beside Holmeston. Holmeston's hand was already on Brandon's bare shoulder. Brandon squirmed. Mr. Holmeston, what do you think of Brandon? Is she suitable to be an actress in your company? A smile appeared on Holmeston's face. Is her name Brandon? Of course. My company is preparing a few movies. As long as Brandon signs, she can be the female lead. Shock appeared in Brandon's eyes. She could be the female lead? This was something she had always dreamed of. But on second thought, it didn't seem right. Even the big six of Hollywood couldn't prepare a few movies at once. Moreover, they had only seen her once, and they were already giving her the female lead. So, Brandon was immediately alarmed. Although Brandon had a baby face, her brain was not as slow as it seemed. I'm sorry, I can't be the female lead yet. Thank you, Mr. Holmeston, but I still want to start as a supporting character. It's fine if you want a supporting character. It's just a matter of saying the word. Holmeston laughed out loud and snapped his fingers. A woman beside him took out a contract from a briefcase beside her. But she handed the contract to Lance first. Lance only glanced at it casually. Mr. Holmeston is so generous. Brandon, hurry up and thank him. Your salary in Hollywood is less than $20,000, but Mr. Holmeston is offering you $100,000 per movie. Brandon was even more suspicious. She was very clear about her salary. Although she was a newcomer in Hollywood, she had graduated from USC Film School. She had some understanding of the rules in Hollywood. She hadn't proven herself. She didn't even have a memorable role. Why was he offering her a high salary? Ms. Lance, can I see the contract? Chapter 888. Lance folded the contract and placed it in front of Brandon. Brandon wanted to take the contract, but Lance grabbed it. Brandon, don't you trust me? Ms. Lance, I want to see everything. Think carefully. This is a great opportunity. Lance unwillingly let go of the contract. The first thing Brandon saw was the name of the company, Farrah Pictures. Farrah Pictures address, San Fernando Valley. Brandon immediately understood why Holmeston gave him the lead role the first time he saw him. Why he could get $100,000 for a movie. Also, the contract clearly stated the content and scale of the movie. In the film industry, other contracts could be lied to, but the content of the movie couldn't be lied to. The content and scale of the shoot had to be written in the contract. The so-called fake contract in the novel to deceive a young girl did not exist in reality. At least, it couldn't be done in America. If the contract didn't mention the content and scale, the actor had the right to refuse. I refuse. Brandon threw the contract down and stood up, ready to leave. Lance stopped him. Brandon, now is not the time to throw a tantrum. Ms. Lance, is this how you push your artists into the fire pit? Brandon, think about it. How many $1 million can you earn in your life? As long as you sign the contract, you'll earn $1 million in 3 months. Sky didn't say the other part. She could take a 30% commission. In other words, she didn't have to do anything and she could take 30%. The agency would take another 30%. This was the rule in Hollywood. Famous stars had to sign new contracts. The more famous they were, the less the agent would take. For those A-listers or super A-listers, their agents would only take 5% or even less. Sky didn't need to train a superstar. She just needed to keep introducing her artists to Holmeston. For example, Brandon would never be able to make it to the top after one movie. He had a way to control her all the time and let her continue to shoot one film after another. Brandon turned to leave, but Sky grabbed him. Don't think about going anywhere if you don't sign the contract. Ms. Sky, if you don't let go, I'll call for help. Brandon, don't be so shameless. I was the one who helped you rent the place you are currently living in. I was also the one who paid the rent. If you refuse, don't even think about staying in Hollywood. You will have to sleep on the streets tonight. Brandon was also unable to restrain his anger. He went up and slapped Raunchy's face. Old witch. You will regret this. Sky covered his face as he watched Brandon leave. Holmeston had been watching from the side. Raunchy, I want this woman. Get her for me. Yes, Mr. Holmeston. I will take care of her. Brandon left the small courtyard. The more he thought about it, the more wronged he felt. In the distance, Chun Zhao was still sitting on the beach. Brandon walked toward Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao looked up and saw that Brandon had returned. But from the looks of it, she seemed to have just cried. Brandon, did you drop your phone in the toilet? Biting his lower lip, Brandon sat beside Chun Zhao. I was tricked by that old witch. She wants me to go to San Fernando Valley to film. Chun Zhao looked Brandon up and down. Are you going? If you go, I'll buy your DVD. Brandon gritted his teeth. You're all bad people. Just then, Sky came again. Brandon, come with me. Do you think I'll be tricked by you again? Brandon looked at Sky in disgust. You don't have to come with me, as long as you have $500,000, Sky said. Why should I take out $500,000? In the contract you signed with the company, there's a rule. If an artist doesn't cooperate with the company's work opportunities and treats them negatively, the company has the right to pursue legal responsibility and compensate for the resources and losses the company has invested. When did I treat my work negatively? If I say you do, you do, Sky said arrogantly. Sky said arrogantly, come back with me and sign that contract. You will also have a chance to be a big star in San Fernando Valley. This sentence could only trick young girls. Perhaps some women who dared to come to Hollywood were stupid, but they were definitely in the minority. If they accepted a film in San Fernando Valley, they'd be far away from mainstream movies forever. For an old fox like Sky, it was too easy to control an artist. Before signing Brandon, she'd already made up her mind. That was why she'd set a trap in the contract. According to Brandon's development in the past 6 months, her chances of becoming famous were too low. Hollywood never lacked beauties. Brandon wasn't a one-in-a-million beauty either. Sending Brandon to the San Fernando Valley to make a film would bring him far more benefits than being a third-rate or fourth-rate star. Unless Brandon became an A-list star, she wouldn't be able to bring much money to Sky. Rather than letting Brandon fight for a hopeless future, of course, it was more tempting to have short-term benefits. Anyway, I won't sign that contract. Brandon was determined. That's not up to you. Chun Zhao felt like he was watching a play. It was like a pimp forcing a girl into prostitution in ancient times. Just then, Holmeston arrived with 2 bodyguards. Sky, you're still not done? Give me some more time, Sky said hurriedly. I'll be done soon. No need to be so troublesome. Transfer her contract to my company. Sky couldn't help but smile. Then the price, $300,000. Brandon's face paled immediately. There were many ways for a rich person to deal with a poor person. For example, this kind of direct purchase of the management contract, which was the so-called transfer of artists. If both parties were on equal footing or the artist was powerful, this method clearly wouldn't work. But for an artist like Brandon who owed the company money and name, the company could easily sell her to someone else. Just as Sky said, if Brandon wanted to terminate the contract, she'd have to pay the debt that she didn't have first. You can't do this. This is fraud, Brandon said with her limited legal knowledge. You can't transfer me to another company without my permission. Chapter 889. Miss Brandon, can you come with me now? I think we still have some contracts to sign. After all, our company cares a lot about new artists. Holmeston reached out to grab Brandon, but another hand grabbed Brandon's waist first. Brandon froze. Turning around, she saw that it was Chun Zhao. Sir, let go of our company's artist. Holmeston looked at Chun Zhao. Your company's artist? Chun Zhao looked down at Brandon. Are you their artist? Brandon lowered her head. She didn't dare to reply. Yes or no. To her, these were all consequences that she could not bear. Sir, you want to steal my woman? Do you know who I am?
No.
Let me introduce myself. Chun Zhao shrugged. Holmeston's face darkened. Chun Zhao's words made him feel insulted. Do you believe that I'll make the women in your family appear in some movie scene in San Fernando Valley? Then do you believe that I'll make you walk out on your knees? Chun Zhao's expression turned cold. Then I'll see how you'll make me walk out on my knees, Holmeston said with a cold smile. Just then, a mocking voice came from behind. I'll give you $100. I bet this guy will leave on his knees. Everyone turned around and saw that Rasfa and Stephen were walking over. Then I'll give you $200, Stephen said. I bet he won't even be able to kneel. Mr. Stephen, Mr. Rasfa, how did you? Holmeston's expression was strange. Did Chun Zhao know Rasfa and Stephen? Rasfa, you know him? I'm not familiar with him, but I remember that his mother's name is Darlene. She was pretty when she was young. Rasfa's voice was rather loud. Really? Holmeston's expression turned awkward. After all, no one would be happy to have someone talk about their mother in front of him. But more importantly, he couldn't offend Rasfa. Rasfa was the CEO of PLM Films. Holmeston, on the other hand, was only in the San Fernando Valley for porn. He was naturally shorter than Rasfa. Moreover, PLM was one of the 6 major Hollywood companies. The two parties didn't seem to have any intersection, but most of their distributors and channels overlapped. Some distributors might not only release regular movies, but also some movies from the San Fernando Valley. What if Rasfa told the distributors to choose PLM's movies or his company's movies? Therefore, those distributors would undoubtedly choose PLM movies. After all, there were many film companies in the San Fernando Valley, and Holmeston Films was not a big company. Rasfa could deal with Holmeston easily, just like how Holmeston could deal with Brandon easily. As for Stephen, he might not be as rich as Rasfa, nor was he in a high position. However, his influence was probably greater than that of the president. If Stephen wanted to deal with Holmeston, all he had to do was say something in the media. The consequences would be disastrous. No one wanted to provoke Stephen. Brandon, on the other hand, was shocked. She did not understand why Rasfa and Stephen would stand up for her. Moreover, he had splashed the wine on Stephen. Mr. Rasfa, did I offend you? What did you do in my house and at my party? Rasfa's eyes were like torches. Rasfa knew exactly what Holmeston had done in his territory. In the past, he was too lazy to argue with Holmeston. But now, Holmeston had actually offended Chun Zhao. As Chun Zhao's staunch allies, Rasfa and Stephen would definitely not be indifferent anymore. Mr. Rasfa, I apologize for what I did before. I promise I won't do it again. One should lower one's head when needed. Holmeston felt that it was not shameful to lower one's head to Rasfa. What else? You still haven't apologized to my friend. Rasfa looked at Holmeston. Him? Holmeston's face darkened even more. What right does he have? Stephen, how many years do you get for selling and tricking women in America? Chun Zhao asked. As long as you're convicted, at least 10 years, Stephen said. Contract fraud is also considered as selling and tricking women. Chun Zhao received a satisfactory answer. Mr. Holmeston, I think you'll have a pleasant 10 years in prison. I don't have a contract to buy her, so what you said doesn't work. Cold sweat beaded on Holmeston's forehead. Then you'd better pray that this is your first time. If you've done the same thing before, I can send you to jail, Stephen said. Mr. Stephen, Mr. Rasfa, Do you really have to kill me? Holmeston gritted his teeth. You said something you shouldn't have, my child. Rasfa smiled like a benevolent elder. Everyone should be responsible for what they do and what they say. Sir, I apologize for what I said just now.
I'm sorry.
Chen Zhao smiled. How about this? Go to the sea, swim past the buoy, and then swim back. Then I'll forgive you. Holmeston looked at the sea that Chen Zhao was pointing at. The buoy was about 150 meters in the sea. It wasn't far. Really? Holmeston thought that he had good stamina. This distance wouldn't trouble him at all. Of course. Mr. Rasfa, do you mean what he said? Of course. Holmeston took off his shirt and rushed down the beach, jumping into the sea. But Holmeston didn't swim for long before he felt something bite his leg and drag him into the water. Seeing Holmeston's appearance, Rasfa and Stephen knew what had happened to him. This beach had always been plagued by sharks, but after Amon's arrival, all the sharks disappeared. Other than sharks, there was nothing else that could attack Holmeston on this beach. Oh no, the boss is in trouble. Seeing this, Holmeston's 2 bodyguards immediately wanted to go into the sea to save him. There seemed to be sharks on this beach, Chen Zhao said calmly. You too, are you sure you want to go into the waters? Chen Zhao's words dispelled the 2 bodyguards' thoughts. Brandon looked at Chen Zhao. Right now, she only felt that Chen Zhao was the demon. He knew that there were sharks here, but Holmeston still went into the water. He was simply trying to kill Holmeston. Chun, don't kill him, Rasfa said. Chapter 890. Stephen and Rasfa could see it too. If Chen Zhao wanted to kill Holmeston, he would have died long ago. He'd been floating for more than 10 minutes, but he wasn't dead yet. Chen Zhao indeed didn't want to kill him. He only wanted to take half of his life. Finally, maybe Holmeston found a chance, but he swam toward the shore like crazy. Amon didn't continue chasing him in the water. Holmeston finally swam to the shore. He lay on the ground, panting. Chen Zhao stood before Holmeston. Looks like you didn't complete my request. There's a monster in the water, a monster. Holmeston couldn't see clearly what it was in the water. Amon was too big, and Holmeston was in a state of panic and fear. He only wanted to escape to the shore, so he didn't care about anything. He only knew that it was huge, really huge. Chen Zhao looked at Holmeston. Don't give me a reason. Chen Zhao looked up at Stephen and Rasfa. I want to know how to make him go bankrupt as soon as possible. Simple, Rasfa said. As long as his reputation goes bankrupt, the bank can force him to his death. What's his company called? Farah Films. Chen Zhao took out his phone and called Amira. Hey, Amira, help me check which banks Farah Films has taken loans from, okay? No need. I know this company. They've taken loans from our bank before. Oh, Amira, you're interested in these movies too? You actually know this film company. Because their boss once invited me to shoot a movie. Huh? So you agreed? Chen Zhao almost peed from laughing. What do you think? Amira's tone was cold. I'm curious why you agreed to give him a loan. Because he's willing to pay the highest interest rate. Then I'm warning you to collect the debt quickly. If you're late, it'll be bad debt, Chen Zhao said, chuckling. You have a grudge against him? Huh. Holmeston pounced at Chen Zhao with a roar. He took out a stone from somewhere and smashed it toward Chen Zhao's head. Ah! Chen Zhao screamed and fell to the ground, holding his head. Ah! Chen Zhao screamed and fell to the ground, clutching his head. My head, I'm going to kill you. Kill you. Holmeston smashed Chen Zhao's body a few times. Suddenly, he came back to his senses. What did I do? Someone come quickly. Rasfa yelled. Capture him. Call the police. Call the police. The servants in the manor heard Rasfa shout and immediately rushed over. Let me go. Let me go. I didn't mean it, Holmeston argued. Take him to the police station, Rasfa said. And call an ambulance. Stop screaming. Stephen walked up and kicked Chen Zhao. Asshole, you didn't act this well on set before. Chen Zhao moved his palm away and looked around. How was my acting? Rasfa went up to check on him. Chen, are you okay? You idiot. Think about it. If Chen couldn't even beat a piece of trash, how could he have fought those bandits? Rasfa thought about it and realized that he was indeed stupid. Both times Chen Zhao attacked, he had killed all the bandits. Many had died in his hands. He actually thought that Holmeston had hurt him. Chen Zhao looked at Brandon and Lan Qi. Brandon, are you still going to be an artist under her company? Brandon immediately shook his head. Brandon looked like a naive and sweet girl. But in reality, she wasn't dumb at all. The man before her had made Holmeston bankrupt with a few moves. He might even go to jail. Clearly, Lan Qi couldn't afford to offend him. If she didn't seize this chance to get rid of Lan Qi, when would she?
Bring me her contract.
Chen Zhao looked at Lan Qi. Right now, Lan Qi was so scared that her limbs were cold. She could be strong in front of Brandon, but before Holmeston, she was only a brothel keeper. She didn't expect Chen Zhao to cripple Holmeston with a flip of his hand. She definitely didn't think that she could defeat Chen Zhao. The two Holmeston bodyguards were still standing there. They didn't know what to do. What are you looking at? Your boss is going to jail. Do you want to go too? Do you need me to arrange a room with him? Sir, I promise I won't tell anyone. Me too. At this time, the advantage of having connections came into play. With a call to the bank, Chen Zhao could make Holmeston want to die. Oh, did you call the ambulance? You're really hurt. I need to check. Personal injury and attempted murder, Chen Zhao said. Oh, send me to Chantilly Hospital. Brandon looked at Chen Zhao deeply. Ruthless, so ruthless. If he made Holmeston's company go bankrupt, he'd be sent to jail. After expressing his gratitude, Brandon left. Brandon was a woman who knew when to retreat. She was smart. Chen Zhao saw Yafan and Lucy in her. But compared to the two vixens, Brandon was much more inexperienced. A while later, the ambulance arrived. Seeing Chen Zhao covered in blood, Fer couldn't help but be stunned. Chen, what's wrong? I was beaten up. I'm seriously injured. I need treatment. Fer could tell from Chen Zhao's tone that he wasn't seriously injured at all. His bloody face did look scary, but his expression was so indifferent. He didn't look like someone who was injured at all. Then the ambulance took Chen Zhao away. Fer used alcohol to wash the blood off Chen Zhao's face, but she couldn't find any wounds. Where's your wound? Don't worry about where it is. Anyway, when we get to the hospital, you can check my injury. For's face darkened. Don't expect me to give you false testimony. Judging from Chen Zhao's attitude and the fact that he wanted to check his injury, he was clearly trying to trick her. I don't need you to give me false testimony. I just want the injury check. You're not injured, right? I know how to make it look like I'm injured. Even if I pass the hospital's check, I can get a report. Who on earth offended you? Someone who shoots porn, Chen Zhao said. Fer couldn't be bothered to cooperate, but she still followed Chen Zhao's request and sent him for the check. Especially the brain concussion and trauma examination that Chen Zhao had specified. For muttered to herself. She had no idea how that person had offended Chen Zhao. Chapter 891. Why aren't you going back? Fer looked at Chen Zhao, who was still sitting on the walkway. Not only that, but his head was also bandaged. There were even 2 drops of red liquid on the bandage. Are you afraid that people won't know your head is injured? I plan to stay here for 2 days. What kind of grudge do you have against that person? I don't know what you're talking about. Look at the bandage on my head. I have a concussion. I need to stay here for observation. Val rolled her eyes. To be able to say that so smoothly, you don't have a concussion, my ass. It wasn't her first day knowing Chen Zhao. She knew Chen Zhao like the back of her hand. Then why are you sitting here? Just then, a nurse walked over. Mr. Chen, your hospitalization procedures have been completed. Please follow me. Thank you. Chen Zhao left with the nurse's help. Fer patted her head. She took out her phone and called Fei Lai. Fei Lai, aren't you going to control your man? What happened to Chen? He's in the hospital now. Hospital? Did he steal business from your hospital again? No, he's here to do business, Fer said. He's in the hospital now.
Huh?
Chen Sheng is sick. Or injured. No, he's just bored and wants to stay. Fei Lai was speechless. Dominic sat in the orthopedic consultation room. Holofin stood beside him. Mr. Dominic, your leg injury is very serious. It's been a while and the wound is showing signs of infection. I suggest you stay in the hospital immediately. If I stay in the hospital, how long will it take for me to recover? At least 2 months. Plus, your injury is a bit complicated. Including the recovery period, it might take 3 months.
What?
3 months? Dominic stood up abruptly. But when he moved, his thigh felt as if it was being pricked by needles. Doctor, does your hospital have any orthopedic specialists? Holofin asked. Dominic wants the best, the doctor answered calmly. Mr. Dominic, I'm the best orthopedic specialist in this hospital, the doctor answered calmly. He knew that the person before him was a famous football player in Europe. Thus, he was rather calm and restrained. There was another doctor who said that my injuries would heal in a month. That's impossible. The recovery period of a muscle strain takes a month. This involves a very complicated muscle growth rate. Although there are some special drugs that can speed up muscle growth, it's impossible to shorten the time by half. Moreover, the 2 months I gave you is already a very optimistic estimate. I want a world-class orthopedic expert. I don't think you're qualified. Dominic sounded very arrogant. The doctor said helplessly, Mr. Dominic, please go to other hospitals to try your luck. At least our hospital doesn't have a world-class orthopedic expert. Fuck, I told you not to get your hopes up in this rural hospital, Dominic said unhappily. Holofin helped Dominic out of the consultation room and saw Chun Zhao walking toward them. Chun Zhao was also supported by a nurse. His head was wrapped in bandages. He seemed to be heavily injured. Hey, isn't this Mr. Chun? What's wrong? Dominic walked over with a smile. None of your business. Chun Zhao glared at Dominic and Holofin. You're so injured and still don't know how to keep a low profile, Holofin said provocatively. Chun Zhao paused. Do you want to lie on the bed too? Holofin immediately stopped talking. He was really afraid that Chun Zhao would attack him. Let's go. He'll beg me sooner or later, Dominic said with a snort. Your brain must be damaged by the drugs. Do you think I'd beg you? Chun Zhao turned his head in disdain, ignoring the two. Holofin, call Mr. Charnon and tell him to come to the hospital, Dominic said. This is the hotel, right? Gaia looked up at the building where the hotel was. This is the biggest hotel in LA. There are thousands of rooms. How do we find him? Just check the guests. If he's our target, he should have a few puppets with him. For our year-end bonus. For everyone's vacation. Seeing Gaia and the others enter, the manager immediately walked over. Hi, do you need a room? Everyone looked at West. We're the police, West said. Police? Is it because of the murder that happened here a few days ago?
Yes.
We suspect that the murderer might still be in the hotel, so we need to investigate the guests. How can we cooperate? The manager asked. Take out the guest list. We need to check it. Okay? The manager didn't suspect West's identity, mainly because the police had been investigating and collecting evidence in the past few days. The manager went to the front desk and took out the guest list. Is there anything else I can help you with? Sir, Gaia said, I'd like to ask if there's a rumor that your hotel is haunted. No, there's no such thing. Sir, we're not reporters or your competitors, Gaia said. We won't spread rumors. We just suspect that the incident might be related to the murderer and that it's an illusion created by the murderer. The manager hesitated. Finally, he admitted it and nodded. Indeed. When did it start? Last Thursday. Okay. Thank you for your cooperation. If there's anything else, we'll ask for your help again. If there's nothing else, I'll leave now. After the manager left, West asked in confusion, Gaia, does this news have anything to do with the person we're looking for? First, we can confirm that the puppeteer has a ghost servant. I suspect that he purposely left the ghost servant in the hotel after he checked in. That's why the haunting happened. So, we started investigating the day before last Thursday and have been here until today. That way, we can narrow down the scope. Everyone understood. If it were them, they would probably compare the rooms one by one. Many people. They stayed here for at least 8 days. Yes, there's a group of people here. More pointed at the screen of the computer and said there were 6 people in total, and they booked 2 rooms. One of them was a deluxe suite, and only 1 person lived in it. The other was an ordinary suite, and 5 people lived in it. That's it, Gaia said. Which room? 18th floor, room 501. It's a single room. The person staying there is called Chanong. Chapter 892. Everyone stood outside the door and exchanged glances. Gaia gestured. Jalag kicked the door. I'll go in first. Gaia was still worried that they'd rush in first. After all, she wasn't sure what they'd encounter, so she, the thick-skinned one, should go first. 3, 2, 1. Gaia gestured a countdown. Jalag kicked the door open. Gaia charged into the room. The person who was sitting on the sofa suddenly jumped up. Who are you? Everyone looked at the person before them. His eyes were glowing green. Your captors. Gaia's arm glowed red. Seeing Gaia's arm, the person turned and ran. Gaia immediately chased after him, but the person crashed into the glass on the wall. With a crash, the man smashed through the glass on the ground and fell outside. Everyone was stunned. They ran to the window and looked down. The person had fallen onto the road below, his body smashed to pieces. Dead. No, Giselle suddenly shouted. He's not a puppeteer, he's a puppet. Then, what about the puppeteer? Oh no, we've been tricked, Gaia shouted. The puppeteer actually lives in the same room as the other puppets. He purposely separated them to make us think that the puppeteer lives here. Go to the 16th floor. But when Gaia and the others rushed to the 16th floor, they found that there was no one in the suite. Damn, the puppeteer got away. Maybe he hasn't gone far. Let's chase. A taxi stopped by the roadside. The driver looked at the 5 people in the car. 4 of them were wearing sunglasses. Sir, my car is small. It can't fit 5 people. Sitting in the passenger seat, Charnon took out a stack of money and handed it to the driver. This is for you, Chantilly Hospital. Thank you. Seeing how generous they were, the driver didn't say anything else. Charnon's phone rang again. It was from Dominic. Picking it up, Charnon said, I'll be there soon. From the rear-view mirror, he could see Gaia and the others rushing out of the hotel. Charnon's lips curled up. He had long since gotten used to the process of being teased like a cat playing with a mouse. But no one had ever been able to catch him. It was because of his cautiousness and carefulness. On the road in front of the hotel, Gaia and the others split up and searched on both sides. After searching for a long time, he still couldn't find anyone, so he could only return to the front of the hotel. How is it?
No.
Not at all. Everyone was disappointed. This was the closest they had ever come to finding the real culprit. But after this, it would not be so easy to find that puppeteer again. By the way, there are surveillance cameras in the hotel lobby. You can watch them. Everyone returned to the hotel, found the lobby manager, and retrieved the surveillance footage. These are the 5 people living in room 501 on the 16th floor. The lobby manager pointed at the people in the surveillance screen. Thank you. After Gaia sent the manager away, he said, among the 5 of them, only the dark-skinned one isn't wearing sunglasses. The other 4 are wearing sunglasses. This person is the puppeteer. Keep a copy of the puppet master's photo on everyone's phone. After sending the message, Gaia's phone rang. Gaia, who is this man? Why are you sending me a stranger's photo? This is the real culprit who hurt Aduz, the puppeteer. We found that his registered name is Chanin, but we don't know if that's his real name. Okay. By the way, where are you now? In the hospital. Seeing a patient? No, I'm in the hospital. Don't joke around. You're sick? Actually, I was beaten up and sent to the hospital. This is even funnier than the previous one. Someone beat you up and sent you to the hospital? Gaia listened to Qin Zhao's voice. It was full of energy. He didn't sound sick or injured at all. Okay, I'm just bored, so I came to the hospital for 2 days. With that, he sent a selfie to Gaia. Pfft. Gaia burst out laughing when she saw it. Everyone gathered around and saw Qin Zhao's selfie on Gaia's phone. They all looked at each other. West yelled in shock. The president is injured?
Who did it?
No way. Did some terrifying existence come to LA? Even the president is injured. How terrifying is it? Is it too late for me to leave the supernatural organization now? Gaia looked at the embarrassed people. If you go visit Chun with flowers and fruits, maybe he'll be in a good mood and give you your year-end bonus. Huh, that makes sense. Then, let's go visit the president now. Everyone rushed to the hospital in a swarm. Chun Zhao had only been in the hospital for less than half a day, but he already regretted it. How could he be so stupid to really stay in the hospital? Whatever. No matter what, he'd already done the admission procedures. He had to stay for at least one night, but it was so boring. He really wanted to find someone to teach him a lesson. Chun Zhao walked out of the single room and pushed the infusion rack. Whistling, he strolled along the corridor of the hospital.
Just then, he saw Four in front of the medical counter.
She seemed to be talking to the medical staff. Hi, Four. Four glanced at Chun Zhao and then ignored him. She turned to leave. Chun Zhao immediately chased after her. Are you done eating? My treat. Are you bored?
You can go home right now.
Falico's still home. No, I have to stay for one night. At least one night. How much do you hate that person? Not too much, but I've already planned his life, Chun Zhao said. First, I'll bankrupt his company and then send him to prison. I'll find a few big black men and have them stay in the same room as him. Chun Zhao's spittle flew everywhere. Four was really not interested in listening anymore. Chun Zhao immediately chased after her. Where did you go? Didn't you say you'd treat me to dinner? Fine. What do you want to eat? Four brought Chun Zhao to the hospital's cafeteria. It was a buffet. Four watched as Chun Zhao placed the entire plate of spaghetti on the table. She was speechless. Holding her forehead, she looked at Chun Zhao. Are you sure you can finish it? Of course. Do you want to bet? $100. Just then, a patient at a nearby table pushed $100 over. I bet you can't finish it. Chun Zhao stood up. Anyone else want to bet? Let's see if I can finish this plate of spaghetti. More and more people gathered around Chun Zhao and Four. Chapter 893. I'll bet $20. You can't finish it.
30. Ditto.
I'll bet $50. This is 10 servings of spaghetti. One person can't finish it. Chun Zhao held the fork in one hand and the basin in the other. Is there no one else to bet? Then I'll start eating. Four was speechless. She thought that Chun Zhao was really bored out of his mind. But soon, Chun Zhao finished half of the spaghetti. Fuck, he really finished it? No way. How can he finish so much? The small amount of spaghetti wasn't a challenge to Chun Zhao at all. Chun, is your stomach bigger than other people's? A doctor who knew Chun Zhao asked. Then, Chun Zhao ran to the counter and used the spaghetti bowl to fill it with steaks. The densely packed steaks piled up in the bowl was too visually shocking. Come, let's continue. Is there anyone who wants to bet? Let's continue. Everyone only needs to bet $100. If I lose, everyone will have to bet $1,000. There's at least 15 kilograms of steaks here, right?
You just ate so much spaghetti.
You can't possibly eat so much steak. I don't believe it either. I'll bet $100. You won't go back on your words, right? Four felt that Chun Zhao was here to scam money. In just a short while, another dozen doctors, nurses, and patients who didn't believe him placed their bets one after another. They really didn't believe that someone could finish such a huge basin of steaks. Chun Zhao had eaten 10 servings of spaghetti. Even if he was on an empty stomach, he wouldn't be able to finish so much steak. But after Chun Zhao started eating, their doubts turned to hesitation, then to regret, and finally to despair. Chun Zhao stuffed the steaks into his mouth piece by piece. After chewing a few times, he swallowed without stopping. Everyone watched as the steaks in the basin decreased bit by bit. When Chun Zhao swallowed the last piece of steak, everyone exclaimed in surprise. I did it! Of course, I also earned $1,300. Chun Zhao waved the money. Does anyone else want to bet? If you do, we'll continue until I lose. I don't believe you can keep eating. Come on, let's continue. I will win back all the money I lost. That's right, you have to spit out the money or your stomach acid. Chen Zhao went to get 10 more pizzas, using the same plate. Come on, place your bets. Same rules, you have to bet at least $100. If I lose, I will pay each of you $1,000. For looked at Chen Zhao worriedly. Chen Zhao had already eaten more than 20 kilograms. An adult man weighing 75 kilograms would need to consume about 3,000 to 3,500 calories a day. 7,000 calories could be compared to 1 kilogram of beef. In other words, a healthy man would consume less than 1 kilogram of beef a day. However, Chen Zhao had eaten at least a month's worth of calories for an adult. Chen, are you really okay? Chen Zhao grinned, revealing his pearly white teeth. Of course I'm fine. Do I look like I'm fine? Chen Zhao wasn't strong in other areas, but his digestive system wasn't something most people could compare to. The heat from the food was also spread to every corner of his body. Come on, start your performance, someone yelled. Chen Zhao grabbed the pizza and started wolfing it down. Everyone swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Could it really be eaten? 10 minutes later, Chen Zhao finished all 10 pizzas. Everyone was so shocked that they couldn't close their mouths. Chen, I really want to cut your stomach open and see if there's an alternate dimension inside. Do you want to continue? Continue. 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 Everyone yelled, except for the owner of the restaurant. Of course, it was hard to ignore the crowd. Chen Zhao took another 15 fried chickens and countless roasted wings. Anyway, he filled the entire basin. I'll pay $10,000, a rich patient yelled. I don't believe you can finish this basin. Cash or check? Chen Zhao asked. Here's the check for $10,000. The bearded patient was generous too. He placed the check before Chen Zhao directly. Chen Zhao had cheated a lot of money already, so he didn't ask anyone to bet anymore. As Chen Zhao ate, he looked at the food counter. The waiters are putting the food away. Fuck, this is a buffet. They can't do this. For was speechless. Can't you finish the food in front of you first? You still have time to look at other places? Yes, you can't do this. Chen, I think you'll be blacklisted by this buffet. The waiters looked at the crowd helplessly and could only stop what they were doing. They stared at the manager, who waved his hand. Soon, chicken bones piled up in front of Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao picked up the check. Waiters, can you bring me the 2 roasted lamb legs hanging there? Everyone exclaimed again. The 2 lamb legs were at least 15 kilograms each. You can still eat? The bearded patient looked at Chen Zhao in disbelief. Not just him, everyone else had the same expression. It was as if they were looking at a monster, a glutton that would never be full. I planned to finish all the food in the restaurant. Chen Zhao grabbed the roasted lamb leg that the waiters had brought over and started biting. As he ate, he said, if you haven't eaten yet, you better eat some too. Otherwise, don't blame me if I finish everything. Everyone roared with laughter, but seeing Chen Zhao wolfing down the food, they all picked up their food too. While eating, they watched Chen Zhao's performance. Chen Zhao looked like a clown trying to please the crowd, but he didn't care. There was nothing wrong with indulging himself once in a while. Chen Zhao tossed the 2 lamb legs on the table. He was still not satisfied. Chen Zhao filled another bowl with sushi and seafood. Seeing Chen Zhao eat like this, everyone felt their taste buds open and their appetites increased. While eating, Chen Zhao taught them, don't eat too much. When you feel full, use your index finger to press below your ribs and belly button. If you feel pain, you have to stop, even if you think you can still eat. Are you in pain? Chen Zhao pulled up his shirt and showed off his V-line. Look at my stomach. Do I look full? Everyone was speechless. Chen Zhao didn't even feel bloated. Did this guy really eat that much? Even 4 found it unbelievable. Just how much could this fellow eat? Chapter 894. The moment Chen Zhao walked out of the restaurant, the waiter stuck his big head at the door. There was a line below. This person is not welcome. When the people who followed him out saw the line and Chen Zhao's face, they couldn't stop smiling. If it was somewhere else, people might think that it was some kind of discrimination. But this time, they could completely understand why the restaurant owner did this. This was because Chun Zhao had finished all the food in the buffet. He didn't touch anything except the dessert section. He didn't forget about the food in the other sections. For looked at him. Are you really okay? I'm fine. I'll be fine after walking around. Others might not have carefully calculated it, but For had. Chun Zhao had eaten at least 60 kilograms of food. But Chun Zhao seemed to be completely fine. A normal person definitely couldn't have this amount of food. More importantly, Chun Zhao didn't look like someone who had eaten so much at all. You eat this much at home too? For had eaten with Chun Zhao before. In her memory, Chun Zhao also ate a lot, but he wasn't as open as this time. Occasionally, Chun Zhao answered casually. But you didn't eat so much the last few times I went to your house? I restrained myself. I was afraid that you'd be hungry as guests. For was speechless. You're not going back to the ward? Let's walk around the field and digest. You can't digest what you just ate just by walking around. It's best if someone comes here and beats him up. That guy came out of the restaurant. Shoal, what was he doing in there? I've been in there for almost 2 hours, Dominic complained. A big star had come out personally to squat. More importantly, his bodyguards were all in the hospital.
He was short of people now.
Only Holofin was around. And Holofin was a talkative king. To put it bluntly, he bullied the weak and feared the strong. He was usually arrogant to everyone, but once someone glared at him, he would be like a turtle. Why isn't Chain in here yet? Holofin said unhappily. This Shoal took our money. Is he going to stand us up? Dominic glanced at Holofin. He only dared to say it now. If it was in front of Cha Nong, he would probably be like a grandson, not even daring to let out a fart. At this moment, 5 people walked toward them. Is there something wrong with these people? Why are they wearing sunglasses in the middle of the night? At this time, the 4 of them took off their sunglasses at the same time. Their eyes glowed green. Dominic and Holofin almost cried out in fright. Holofin even fell to the ground. The 4 puppets put on their sunglasses again. You guys, Cha Nong looked at Holofin condescendingly, with some coldness in his eyes. Are you Mr. Charnon? Dominic asked in a probing manner.
Cut the crap.
Where is he? He went that way. Mr. Chanin, let me lead the way. Holofin was like a lackey, guiding Cha Nong in front. At this time, the 3 of them saw 2 people sitting on a bench on the field. One of them was Chun Zhao, whom they were looking for. Chun Zhao also noticed the newcomer. Chun, they're coming this way. Do you know them? Maybe they know that I'm full, so they're here to help me digest. With Cha Nong's support, Dominic and Holofin were much more confident facing Chun Zhao. What a coincidence, Mr. Chun. We meet again. Dominic's tone was provocative. His eyes kept glancing at 4 beside Chun Zhao. Moving closer to Cha Nong, Dominic whispered, Mr. Chanin, control that woman too. I want her. Chun Zhao hadn't noticed Cha Nong at first. He thought that he was Dominic's bodyguard. But he heard Dominic's words. Cha Nong. So this guy was Cha Nong, the puppeteer. Chun Zhao smiled brightly. Chun, they don't seem friendly, For said worriedly. Let's go. Okay, you go first. I have some private things to deal with. You're not leaving? What are you going to do? Digest. At this moment, a few more people arrived from outside the sports field. They didn't walk over directly. Instead, they sat in the audience seats and kept looking over. Chun Zhao glanced at the newcomers. It was Gaia and the others. Gaia, should we go over and help? No, Chun can take care of it. But the president seems to be injured. Look at his head. It's wrapped in bandages, and there's even blood. Do you really believe that Chen's injured? Is it he? I get it, Giselle said, her eyes shining. This must be the president's plan. He's using the illusion that he's injured to bait the puppeteer. Pointing in Gaia's direction, Chen Zhao said to 4, Go sit with those people for a while.
Huh? Who are they?
My friends, Chen Zhao said.
4 thought about it.
It seemed like Chen Zhao was going to fight. She couldn't help here either. Instead of staying here and causing trouble, she should give Chen Zhao some space. For knew that Chen Zhao was good at fighting. Half a year ago, they'd been on the way to Sacramento together. For had seen Chun Zhao's scary side. He'd killed those bandits with one punch. For walked up to Gaia and the others. Hi, are you Chen's friends? Yes. Miss, can I know your name? Can I have your phone number? Jolig asked. Gaia glanced at Jolig. She's Miss Failai's sister. Are you sure you want her number? I'll pretend you didn't hear anything. Chanin looked back at Gaia and the others in the audience. He couldn't help but frown. He'd seen Gaia and the others through the puppets. He didn't expect them to appear here. Could it be that he had given himself away somewhere and exposed his tracks? Or could it be that this was a trap? Mr. Chanin, do it. Control this asterisk shoal. Chanin pointed at Chen Zhao. A puppet charged at him. Dominic and Holofin were both excited. They'd seen how terrifying Chanin's puppets were. It was as if they could already foresee Chen Zhao being beaten to the ground and then humiliated by them. Chen Zhao stretched and watched as the puppet approached him. Chapter 895. Charnon was surprised. Dominic and Holofin were surprised too. Chen Zhao grabbed the puppet's fist. It was strong, but only a few times stronger than a regular person. Crack! Chen Zhao twisted lightly, and the puppet's arm was broken. Chen Zhao smiled and crooked his finger. Call the ones beside you up. I ate a bit too much tonight and need to digest. Charnon's expression changed slightly. At the same time, she had the 3 puppets beside her attack.
1.
Chen Zhao punched, and a puppeteer fell to the ground.
2.
The second punch. 3. The third punch. Dominic and Holofin were dumbfounded. They couldn't help but look at Charnon. Charnon's expression was already serious. When she looked at Chen Zhao, there was some certainty in her eyes. You're not bad. How about we pretend this never happened? Chen Zhao chuckled. Do you remember that day in the hotel when you broke the elevator rope? Charnon's eyes flashed as she looked at Chen Zhao. One of the heavily injured ones was my subordinate, Chen Zhao said. You might not be my match, Charnon said. So, I'll give you a chance to attack. Take out your trump card. Charnon snorted and took a deep breath. A green spiritual body floated out of the mouths of the 4 puppets. The 4 puppets immediately fell to the ground and stopped moving. The green spiritual body was sucked into Charnon's mouth. Charnon's eyes started glowing red. You don't know what you're facing, Charnon growled. Your arrogance will bring you bad luck. Her body emitted a terrifying aura. Holofin and Dominic took a few steps back in fear. For could vaguely hear Gaia and the others talking, but they seemed to be avoiding her on purpose. She couldn't hear what they were saying. This guy is using puppet magic on himself. This guy's strength has increased by at least 10 times. Can the president handle it? Just 10 times, Gaia said calmly. Even she was confident, let alone Chen Zhao. Charnon felt that she had victory in her grasp. Even the aura she emitted could make Chen Zhao tremble. Charnon walked up to Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao didn't move. Chanin was very satisfied. You don't even have the courage to run now, do you? Why should I run? Chen Zhao was speechless. He didn't understand where Charnon got her confidence from. Chanin punched Chen Zhao's stomach, but Chen Zhao still didn't move. How does this punch feel? Air. Not bad. Help me scratch again. Chen Zhao curled his finger at her. Channon's face was flushed, and he immediately punched again. But Chen Zhao was still as calm as ever. Chanin didn't believe it. He started punching him again and again. Dominic and Holofin were delighted to see Charnon's relentless attacks. He thought that Chen Zhao couldn't fight back.
For looked at Chen Zhao.
Chen, why aren't you fighting back? Are they juggling? That guy is just showing off his strength. Gaia's words hit the nail on the head. The other people in the association were also speechless. They knew Chen Zhao too well. To them, Channon's strength was only decent. They might not have a chance against Channon alone, but if 2 or 3 of them worked together, they could easily beat Channon. Not to mention Chen Zhao. Even if everyone in the association worked together, they might not be Chen Zhao's match. A mere Channon couldn't beat Chen Zhao either. Chen Zhao also found it boring. He'd been hoping that Cha Nong could give him some pressure. Unfortunately, Cha Nong's strength was only this much. Chun Zhao finally reached out and grabbed Cha Nong's shoulder. Crack! Cha Nong's shoulder was crushed. Cha Nong clutched his shoulder in pain. Was this guy a monster? He'd punched him dozens of times, but he was completely fine. After all, Cha Nong's fist had at least 2 tons of strength. Chun Zhao grabbed Cha Nong's head and lifted him into the air. Just then, more ran down from the stands and ran to Chun Zhao. President, wait.
What?
President, I want to learn puppet magic. You learn clone magic. Why do you want to learn puppet magic? Guild leader, my doppelgangers are as weak as my main body right now. They can only perform suicidal attacks each time. If I can combine doppelganger magic with puppet magic, my doppelgangers will possess superior combat power, Shifeng said. Chun Zhao thought about it and realized that it made sense. But he wasn't willing to let Cha Nong go just like that. President, let us bring him back to the association. When the time comes, we'll have the final say on how he dies. Copy Adu's injuries to him, Chun Zhao said. With that, Chun Zhao lifted his foot and stepped on Cha Nong's chest. Cha Nong's scream echoed through the field. Does it hurt? Chun Zhao asked. Unfortunately, Cha Nong didn't reply. Chun Zhao kicked him again. Then he asked, does it hurt? Since you didn't say it hurts, then it doesn't hurt. Still doesn't hurt? Keep hitting. Dominic and Holofin broke out in a cold sweat. Chun Zhao didn't even give Cha Nong a chance to speak. They didn't expect that they'd excitedly come to find trouble with Chun Zhao. In the end, Chun Zhao beat Cha Nong to the ground. It was like sending a lamb into a tiger's mouth. After hitting for a while, Chun Zhao started sweating. He pulled the bandage off his head and wiped the sweat off his face. Everyone was speechless. You're injured? I feel much better now, Chun Zhao said. We can bring him back and have some fun for the association. Dominic and Holofin paled in fear. Chun Zhao had beaten Cha Nong half to death and wasn't going to let him go. Was he going to drag him back and whip his corpse?
Gaia. And the others came down too.
After Chun Zhao said a few words to them, Gaia dragged Cha Nong out. Only then did 4 walk down from the stands. Dominic and Holofin wanted to escape, but they knew they couldn't when facing Chun Zhao. Mr. Chun, this is a misunderstanding. Don't tell me it's a misunderstanding. I won't accept it. Chun Zhao looked at the two indifferently. Chun, this guy seems to be a famous European star, For said. If you attack him, it won't be good. For wouldn't stop Chun Zhao from hitting thugs. But if he attacked a famous person, it would be very bad. He just said he wanted to rape you, Chun Zhao said. I remember now. I have a patient. For turned and left. Chun Zhao looked at Dominic with a faint smile. Chapter 896. Chun Zhao kicked Dominic's thigh again. His already injured thigh became even more injured. As for Holofin, Chun Zhao made sure he couldn't get off the ground for the rest of his life. Since they'd asked Chainin to deal with Chun Zhao, they clearly knew who Chainin was. As for their goal, it went without saying. Chun Zhao didn't have the habit of spoiling them. For waited at the entrance of the field for Chun Zhao to come out. Seeing Chun Zhao's relaxed expression, she was speechless. Are you that happy?
Yeah.
I ate so much just now. I'm done digesting it. How about we go eat something else? Chun Zhao stayed in the hospital for a day, adding another injury report to his medical report. The next morning, Chun Zhao packed up and went home. He was a doctor, but staying in the hospital was really awkward. When he got home, Fei Lai was feeding Jerlin meat porridge. I heard from Fer that you hit someone in the hospital again last night, Fei Lai said casually, without even looking up. Don't listen to her, Chun Zhao said, feeling wronged. I'm the injured one.
I was forced to fight back.
I didn't start anything. Fei Lai rolled her eyes. Where are you hurt? I had a concussion. I'm still a bit dizzy. Tell me what happened. Yesterday at Rasva's house, I bumped into a pornographic film guy. He said something dirty. Fei Lai thought for a moment and roughly knew what the guy had said. Chun Zhao would usually fight with others. Even in a small town, he'd fought a few times. However, Chen Zhao rarely hit people, let alone frame them. How come you didn't kill someone like that? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. It's Rasva's house, after all. If it was somewhere else, I'd have killed him already. After catching Chainin, Chen Zhao agreed to the year-end bonus and the request for a year-end vacation. The vacation was arranged in December. After all, it was only November. Also, Chen Zhao planned to go to Canada with Fei Lai this month. He didn't want a vacation with the other members of the association. In the past 2 days, Chen Zhao stayed at home. Suddenly, he felt the lucky coin heat up. This lucky gold coin was given to him by the handsome young man. Then, without giving Chen Zhao any time to react, Chen Zhao realized that the entire world had changed. This wasn't the first time Chen Zhao had experienced this feeling. But this time, she didn't even have the chance to say anything. The handsome guy appeared before Chen Zhao again. Did I summon you too suddenly? The handsome guy saw that Chen Zhao was only wearing a pair of boxers. His upper body was bare, and he even had a facial mask on. Handsome, I think we have to abide by a rule. The next time you summon me, you have to give me time to prepare. If you summon me so suddenly again, I'll reject your summon. That's right. Okay, I was wrong. The handsome boy said with a sunny smile. You're behaving like a demon king. Don't promise me so easily. Arrogant, arrogant. Shouldn't you be representing arrogance? You humans are so complicated. What should I do? Refuse your request? The handsome guy looked at Chen Zhao. Then I'll reject you. I'll call you out like this again next time.
I don't mean that.
Then what do you want me to do? Forget it. Let's talk business.
Why did you summon me this time?
Chen Zhao asked. The handsome guy looked at Chen Zhao.
You look different from last time.
Huh? What's different? Your magic is perfectly fused with your body. It's strange. How did you do it? You're a demon king. Don't you know? I'm a demon king, not a god. I'm not omniscient and omnipotent. Plus, I haven't been through your stage, so I don't know how to do it. Chen Zhao didn't hide anything. The two of them sat down, and Chen Zhao explained his cultivation process in a slightly simplified manner. The person who thought of this is really powerful. Is it Samuel's idea?
No.
Chen Zhao shook his head. Why did you summon me to hell? Our deal. I've already completed the Tower of Trials. Where? The handsome guy took out a round tower. It looked like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but it was only 20 centimeters tall. However, Chen Zhao believed that since he'd taken it out and made it meticulously, it wouldn't be an ordinary model. How do I use it? The Tower of Trials can only be activated with a magic spell. The handsome guy placed the tower on the ground and retreated 30 meters with Chen Zhao. Under the little handsome boy's incantation, the Tower of Trials began to grow bigger, bigger, and bigger. It grew until it was a 100-meter-tall tower. The Tower of Trials looked very majestic. There were exquisite carvings on the walls. This training tower has a total of 18 floors. Each floor has a large space, and each floor has a completely different environment. Of course, the number of enemies on each floor will gradually increase. How do I ensure the safety of those who enter? Chen Zhao asked. The handsome guy took out a dozen rings. As long as you wear this ring, you'll be expelled from the Tower of Trials in the most dangerous moment. Which floor can I reach now? Chen Zhao asked. I don't know. You can try. The handsome guy shook his head. Our deal is done. Chen Zhao put away the Tower of Trials. The handsome guy was surprised. I thought you'd go in and try. Handsome, let me ask you a question. What question? Do gods really exist? To you humans, anything more advanced than you can be called gods, such as demons, the handsome guy said. To other species in the human world, humans are their gods. I'm not talking about advanced life forms. I'm talking about existences in a certain concept, such as omniscience and omnipotence. I can't answer that. I was created in the first place. So, is the one who created you a god? To me, yes, but to your concept, he's not a god either, the handsome guy said. The handsome young man said, maybe there are more advanced species above him. And maybe in the eyes of some advanced species, I'm just a low-level species like you. You're quite open-minded. Don't you humans have a saying? The more you know, the smaller you'll find yourself. Forget it. Let's not talk about something that even you can't explain. Let's talk about what you're good at. What do you want to talk about? Chapter 897. What's wrong with a pure physical attack? The handsome guy asked. Don't you think it's boring?
No.
The handsome guy shook his head. But against a spirit-type enemy, the final deciding factor of victory is still my magic power. But spiritual enemies are also the weakest. They don't have a physical body, so most of them are weak, the handsome guy said. The handsome boy said, I don't think you should give up your advantage and choose magic attacks. Moreover, with your personality, you will choose to fight in the most direct way in the end. Chun Zhao rubbed his hair. Sigh, why can't you understand? Actually, I just want to show off. I want those super colorful ones that don't need to be powerful. I'll just be dazzled by them. You want to learn illusions? No, not illusions. I still can't understand what you're thinking. Or rather, I can't understand what you humans think. Just tell me if you have such spells. Don't need power? Yes, even if it doesn't have any power. Looks cool. Yes. Do you know what's cool means? I do. It's used to scare people, right? Yes. The handsome guy thought for a long time and then stood up. He closed his eyes and pointed at his forehead. Rings of light appeared behind him, like a blazing sun born from chaos. The light was beautiful, but not dazzling. It didn't hurt people's eyes. Not enough, Chun Zhao said. More magic arrays in the air. That's meaningless. Handsome, you have to understand that I don't want power. I just want to look scary. The handsome guy spread his arms and hundreds of magic arrays appeared in the air. Everything within a radius of several hundred meters was enveloped by the dazzling magic arrays, which were as pleasing to the eye as fireworks. Is this okay? Yes, this is much better. Chun Zhao nodded. Is this spell hard to learn? Not hard. It's just a bit complicated. Reality proved that the handsome guy was strong, but not a good teacher. Like most people, they might have some kind of skill or knowledge, but they might not know how to pass this knowledge to others. Chun Zhao studied for a long time, but still couldn't understand it clearly. Now I understand why you are lowly creatures. I should feel honored to be able to make the Demon King look down on a species. At the very least, for this moment, I represent a species. Chun Zhao wasn't ashamed. Instead, he felt proud. He didn't think that he should feel ashamed. After all, he was facing the Demon King. It might not be a god, but it was definitely the most advanced species Chun Zhao knew. It was like comparing the brain development of a cow to that of a human. No matter how smart a cow was, it was impossible for it to be smarter than a human. After 10 hours, Chun Zhao managed to learn it. However, Chun Zhao clearly couldn't make it as spectacular as the handsome guy. Chun Zhao could only use this spell to cover an area of 10 feet. Of course, this didn't mean that Chun Zhao was 10 times stronger than the handsome guy. That was because the handsome young man had only used 1,000th of his strength. Next time, bring me to eat the special delicacies of hell. Of course, the kind that doesn't have any side effects. I don't want to eat something and suddenly mutate. Chun Zhao said. Hell's specialty delicacies? Why do you humans pursue the needs of taste? That's something I can't understand. The Demon King of Hell represents the 7 sins, but now you say that you can't understand human desires. That's a funny question. Chun Zhao rolled his eyes. It's different. We represent the source of our power, not desire itself. Then, do you want anything? Chun Zhao asked. No. Then what's your furnace for? Didn't you build it for a certain purpose? I can destroy the furnace anytime. Don't be so serious. Chun Zhao took out an angelic crystal. He'd obtained it when he killed a Baden last time. The handsome guy's eyes were immediately attracted by the angelic crystal. Do you want it? The handsome guy nodded, and Chun Zhao put it away. Look, this is your desire. Desires vary from person to person. It's not that you don't have desires, it's just that what you and I pursue is different. You have everything, so you seem to have no desires, but that doesn't mean you really don't have anything you want. Fine, I accept your point of view. Also, I want to trade with you. I want that angelic crystal. Name your price, Chen Zhao said. Then what do you want? The handsome guy asked. I don't know what I want. Basically, what I want the most is wealth, Chen Zhao said. Can you give me wealth?
No.
The handsome guy shook his head. Then give me a few more lucky gold coins or death substitution gold coins. Your request is that simple. The handsome guy looked at Chen Zhao in confusion. Something that's worthless to you might be priceless to me, Chen Zhao said. Lucky coins are still useful to you, but death replacement coins are useless to you. It doesn't matter. Even if I can't use it, my family can. That's enough. Then I'll give you 10 lucky coins and 10 death replacement coins, the handsome guy asked tentatively. Sure. Actually, you can raise the price a bit more, the handsome guy said. I don't have many good points, but being easily satisfied is probably one of them, Chen Zhao said calmly. Also, in our last trade, I used angelic crystals to exchange for the trial tower. I think I earned a lot. Although it's a trade, I think I should return the favor and not ask for it unilaterally. I'll give it to you next time. I need to collect it too, the handsome guy said. Chen Zhao handed the angelic crystal to the guy. The handsome boy took the angelic crystal and took out a ring. Wear this. You'll be under my protection, even in hell.
Thank you.
Chen Zhao didn't reject anything. Next time, I'll take you to find delicacies in hell. It's about time. I should return to the human world. The handsome guy looked at Chen Zhao. You don't look like a human. You don't look like a demon king either. Chen Zhao waved his hand.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
This was the first time the guy had said this to someone.
Chen Zhao gave him a special feeling. Chapter 898. No matter what, the sunlight in the world was comforting. Fei Lai was a little upset about Chen Zhao's sudden disappearance for a day again. Chen Zhao would tell her every time, but just like last time, he disappeared for a day without warning. After much persuasion, Chen Zhao finally calmed her down. The next day, Chen Zhao went to the headquarters. Where are they? Gather everyone. President, Mr. West went to our superior department, Jolig said beside Chen Zhao. Then don't worry about him. Gather the other members. Do we have to do missions outside too? I don't care, but don't say I didn't warn you if you miss this opportunity. What opportunity? Everyone was curious. Was Chen Zhao going to give them some benefits again? Anyway, I'll just wait for 2 hours, Chen Zhao said. Those who can come back in time will come. If not, then forget it. Mr. West, the president seems to have a plan again. It looks like he's giving you benefits. How long will it take for you to come back? Not so soon. West was a bit depressed. The anti-terrorism department was really slow. He just sat on the bench for an hour. He didn't know what benefits Chen Zhao was going to give him. He didn't know if he could make it in time. Just then, a female secretary walked out. Mr. West, the president wants you in. West tidied up his clothes and walked into the office. Mr. President, hello? Leong put down the documents in his hands. Why are you here? Did something happen to the association? No, Mr. President. I'm here to submit our budget report for next year. Our president also said that he hopes to receive the funds at the beginning of the year. Hearing this, Leong slammed the table and stood up. The supernatural organization is only a subordinate department of the anti-terrorism department. Even our regular army doesn't have such a requirement. What right do you have to make such a request to a superior department? Mr. President, we've participated in many operations this year and achieved great results, so we have. That's what you guys should be doing. Leong interrupted West. Anything else? Nothing. West lowered his head. Also, that president of yours has been here for more than half a year, but he still hasn't met me. Call him here tomorrow. I want to see him. Leong said. West groaned inwardly. According to Leong's aggressive attitude, they would probably start fighting if they met the equally aggressive Chen Zhao. Is there anything else? If there's nothing else, remember to close the door when you leave. West was depressed as he left the counter-control headquarters dejectedly. On the way back to the association headquarters, West could not calm down. He didn't know how to tell Chen Zhao. When West arrived at the headquarters, he realized that everyone was gathered in the open space outside. Mr. West is back. West walked over. President. Yes, you came just in time. Chen Zhao nodded. Okay, I have something to show you. Chen Zhao took out the Tower of Trials and placed it on the ground. Move back 30 meters. Guild leader, what is this? It looks like some kind of weapon. Or a bomb. Bomb? Judging from the material, it should be a rock, right? It looks more like an art piece. Everyone guessed and looked at Chen Zhao curiously. Chen Zhao started chanting a spell. Then, the Tower of Trials started expanding before everyone's eyes. Bigger, bigger, bigger. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, their faces filled with disbelief. What is this? So big. Oh my God, is this a tall tower? After the Tower of Trials reached a height of 100 meters, it finally stopped. Everyone raised their heads and looked at the training tower. Chen Zhao was very proud of his display. President, what is this? Wes was also so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. Everyone looked at the Tower of Trials in disbelief. This is... Chen Zhao was about to explain when someone interrupted him. Wait, is it my imagination? The tower seems to be falling. No, it doesn't seem. It's really going to fall. Fuck, run. Chen Zhao yelled. It was really going to fall. Everyone ran for their lives in fear. An elite was the fastest. The Tower of Trials slowly tilted to the right more and more. Rumble. The Tower of Trials fell on the headquarters. More than half of the center was destroyed. Everyone who had just experienced a frightening moment watched as their headquarters was destroyed just like that. Their expressions all froze. They looked at Chen Zhao in shock. Chen Zhao was also very embarrassed. It was an accident. Chen Zhao scratched his face. He'd really embarrassed himself this time. He didn't expect such an accident to happen. Chen Zhao hadn't thought much when he displayed the Tower of Trials. But when he placed it on the ground couldn't bear the weight of the Tower of Trials. It deformed and caused the Tower of Trials to collapse. Everyone's expressions froze. They looked at Chen Zhao and then at the huge tower that had destroyed their headquarters. Don't say anything. Chen Zhao stopped them. He walked up and chanted a spell. The Tower of Trials shrank again, and Chen Zhao put it away. Great. President's weapon is very powerful. Any demon or monster will be turned to ashes by this weapon. West was the first to cheer. Yes, yes. Congratulations, President, for getting this weapon. Yes, yes. President, what's the name of this weapon? West had wanted to give Chen Zhao a way out, but after his explanation, Chen Zhao felt even more embarrassed. Chen Zhao felt even more embarrassed. How is this a weapon? This was the Tower of Trials. Actually, I've always felt that our headquarters architectural style is too old. I've wanted to tear it down and rebuild it for a long time. I think so too. President, you're wise. We can use this opportunity to renovate the headquarters. Chen Zhao's lips twitched. Okay, I'll pay for the rebuilding. Chen Zhao was very depressed. What was going on? They demolished the headquarters for no reason. Chen Zhao took out his phone and found Felwood Cisco's number. Hello, Mr. Felwood, I have a project here. Are you interested? The budget is around $2 million. Yes, yes, Mr. Chen. Thank you so much. Felwood almost jumped up from his seat. A budget of $2 million was definitely a big project. Then, when shall we meet? I'll arrange for someone to meet you. You can talk to him. Chapter 899. Everyone started cleaning up the headquarters and moving out the things that needed to be moved out. Ah! Chen Zhao suddenly screamed. Everyone turned around and saw Chen Zhao pull out a corpse from the rubble. Cisco's corpse had been pulled out. No wonder Chen Zhao screamed so miserably. Usually, when Chen Zhao was depressed, he would find Cisco to vent his anger. Now that his toy was dead, of course Chen Zhao would be sad. President, he's dead. It's not a big deal. who said it's not a big deal. I was going to leave him to my daughter. Let's see if she wants to take revenge for her mother. Everyone was speechless. Chanon's not dead yet. Moore found Chanon from the rubble. Chanom's life was really tough. He didn't die even after that. Just then, West came to Chen Zhao's side. President, let's talk here. Surprised, Chen Zhao followed West to the side. What's wrong? President, the director of the Anti-Terrorist Operations Department, Mr. Leon, wants to see you. Oh, sure. What's wrong? Director Leon might have a bad temper. Don't worry, Chen Zhao said. Since he's my superior, I'll watch my temper. Seeing Chen Zhao's solemn promise, West's mood didn't improve at all. Chen Zhao was a very stubborn person. He didn't think that if Minister Leong had said anything unpleasant, he wouldn't be able to do anything. Chen Zhao would tolerate it. The next day, Chen Zhao and West went to the Anti-Terrorist Operations Department. It looked like a normal office. People came and went. Other than checking their identities at the entrance, they didn't do much else. It was completely different from what Chen Zhao had imagined. Chen Zhao thought that there would be all sorts of high-tech scanning devices, like retina or fingerprints. However, Chen Zhao couldn't stand sitting on the walkway. That minister, when will he see us? If he's not free, we can do it another day. President, be patient. Just a little bit more. Chen Zhao's impatience was written all over his face. Finally, after more than 2 hours, Leon's secretary finally informed them that they could go in. Chen Zhao walked in and sat in front of Leon. Leon looked up at Chen Zhao. Did I say you could sit? Are all Chinese so rude? West's forehead was already covered in cold sweat. This was not a happy start. You don't take the initiative to invite the guest to take a seat when you summon the guest. You Americans don't have much better manners. Chen Zhao crossed his legs and stared at Leong. You're from China. Tell me why you joined the supernatural organization. Leon treated Chen Zhao like an outsider. Oh, my ability isn't very good in the country, so I came to the United States to try my luck. In the end, I found out that the level of the supernatural here is very low. Even someone like me can become the president. Veins popped out on Liang's forehead. Gritting his teeth, he slammed the table and yelled, Kid, you're pretty tough with your words. Do you believe that I'll send you to jail? Old man, you're quite stubborn. Do you believe that I'll send you straight to the hospital? I now doubt your ability to lead the supernatural organization. I'm more capable than you anyway, Chen Zhao said in disdain. You're challenging my bottom line? Leong gritted his teeth and stared at Chen Zhao. On the surface, the supernatural organization is a subordinate department of your anti-terrorism department, but we have our own way of operating. It's not your place to interfere. Since they'd already fallen out, Chen Zhao planned to fight Leong to the end. But your funds are provided by the Anti-Terrorism Operations Department. You don't have to. In the future, you can deal with supernatural incidents yourselves. Do you think we can't deal with these incidents without the supernatural organization? Chen Zhao stood up and turned to leave. West, the supernatural organization has a holiday today. Come back. Leong felt like he was going to have a heart attack. He already regretted summoning Chen Zhao. He didn't think that Chen Zhao's temper was even worse than his. He'd wanted to put on airs and let Chen Zhao know who was boss. But Chen Zhao didn't have a good conversation with him at all. Chen Zhao turned around and gave Leong the middle finger. Don't ask for it. Fuck off, fuck off. Leong roared in exasperation. Even without the supernatural organization, we can deal with it. We can form a second supernatural organization ourselves. Chen Zhao shrugged. Good luck.
Goodbye.
I don't believe that the Anti-Terrorism Operations Department will be finished without you. West followed beside Chen Zhao with a bitter expression. President, why do you have to be like this? Didn't you see that old guy's face? He's just here to humiliate me. West's face was filled with helplessness. The supernatural organization had its own system, but its funds were all provided by the Anti-Terrorism Operations Department. Now that they'd fallen out with Leong, what would they eat? Would Leong really come and beg them? What a joke. The most likely scenario was that they'd form another supernatural organization. It would also be directly controlled by Leong. It wouldn't be like the current supernatural organization, which was controlled by the Anti-Terrorism Operations Department. President, what if they don't come and beg us? Then we'll be self-sufficient, Chen Zhao said matter-of-factly. In the future, we'll charge for every operation. If we don't pay, we won't do anything. It's that simple, just like hospitals now. Will that work? Why not? You have to be confident in yourself. What if it doesn't work? Then we'll disband, Chen Zhao said calmly. Sigh, if he'd known this would happen, he wouldn't have informed Chen Zhao. He could have just found an excuse to deal with Lei on. Chen Zhao's temper was an eye-opener for him. Will the headquarters still be renovated? Of course. Chen Zhao's answer was certain. West was confused about his future. Oh, I'm curious. Why isn't the supernatural organization under the government's control? President, America is a member of the supernatural organization and has to follow the supernatural convention. The government has to interfere with the organization's operations. Then that old guy said he'd form his own organization. That's illegal, right? That's true, but they can form it privately. It looks like a private organization, but it's actually controlled by the Anti-Terrorism Operations Department. That's totally possible. Then, do you think they can form it? That depends on how much they invest. The supernatural organization doesn't invest much, right? The supernatural organization has existed for 30 years. The Anti-Terrorism Operations Department has invested more than $100 million. Chapter 900. I'll find the most powerful spiritualist, Leong roared. I want the most powerful spiritualist. I don't care how much it costs. Minister, are you serious? The secretary walked in and looked at Leong. Do I look like I'm joking? Leong took out a document from under his desk.
Take it.
Invite them from here. As the head of the Anti-Terrorist Operations Department, Leong had many spiritualists under his command. Minister, are you really going to rebuild a supernatural organization because of this incident?
What?
My words don't work anymore? The secretary looked at Leong helplessly. Since you've decided, I'll do it. Mr. Chen, hello. Felwood Cisco came to the ruins of the supernatural organization's headquarters. When Felwood saw the ruins, he had a rough plan in his heart. This is West. He'll be in charge of the handover. Chen Zhao pointed at him. Mr. Chen, what's the specific purpose of this project? Office use, Chen Zhao said. But I hope to have a high-tech exterior design. What about the size of the office? No more than 20 people, but the office also needs a warehouse and a machine room. Chen Zhao added, but other than the office, I also need to build a foundation that can support a 100-meter building.
Huh.
Felwood was confused. This place was already secluded enough. Was Chen Zhao planning to build a 100-meter tall building here? You don't need to know the purpose. You just need to do it. Okay? Felwood couldn't think of a reason to reject Chen Zhao's money. Since Chen Zhao had given him such a large order, he had no reason to reject it. I'll give you the blueprints within a week and send them to Mr. Chen and Mr. West. Although Chen Zhao wanted him to hand over to West, Chen Zhao's status was clearly higher than West's. Therefore, he had to consider Chen Zhao's suggestions and requests. Chen Zhao definitely had the right to speak. West, if you have any requests, you can discuss it with Mr. Felwood yourself. Okay? West nodded. Also, I'm going to Canada for vacation with Feilai the day after tomorrow. I won't be back until the 25th. Don't disturb me if there's nothing important. After giving instructions, Chen Zhao left the reconstruction of the association headquarters to West. In any case, he was just a hands-off shopkeeper. After all, he had already paid for it, so there was no need for him to do anything. Mrs. Peter was sitting in the courtyard, enjoying the afternoon sun and reading a book. At this moment, the butler walked over. Madam, there's someone outside. He said he wants to see you. Who is it? He didn't say, but he said you would see him, the butler said. What do you mean? Mrs. Peter asked in confusion. He said that he had made a deal with you before. I haven't made a deal with anyone, Mrs. Peter said with a frown. Although she was rich, it was all inherited from her family. What does he look like? He was wearing a wide-brimmed felt hat and a trench coat. The collar was pulled up high, so I couldn't see his face clearly. Mrs. Peters' mind instantly thought of someone. It was that person. That person had come? The messenger of God. Why did he come? Let him in. Mrs. Peters suddenly became nervous. Not long after, a man followed the butler into the room. Mrs. Peters kept staring at the person behind the butler. Just like the first time, she could not see his face. Sir, how should I address you? The man did not speak. He just stood there quietly. Anderson, you can leave first. Yes, madam, the housekeeper said after she left. After the butler left, the man said, You know who I am. I don't know how to address you. Mrs. Peters tried to remain calm. You can call me Shimi. Hello, Mr. Shimi. May I know why you are here? I'm here to take back what I stored here. Mrs. Peters' face instantly turned pale. You want to take my legs? No, it's part of our deal. I won't take it. Then, what do you want to take? Suddenly, Shimi reached out a hand and pierced Mrs. Peters' stomach. Mrs. Peters felt a sharp pain. She watched as the hand pierced through her stomach, but she could not scream. Her voice was stuck in her throat, unable to come out. This hand was not a human hand. It was not the hand of God, as she had thought. This hand was furry, like a wild beast. This time, Mrs. Peters saw the man's face clearly. It was not a human face at all. Just then, Shimi retracted his hand and took out a bright red ball from Mrs. Peters' stomach. The ball seemed to have a life of its own. It kept pulsing.
Goodbye.
Shimi waved his hand. Mrs. Peters fell to the ground, muttering, Wise. Chen Zhao saw a car parked at the door. 2 uniformed people got out. Chen Zhao walked to the door. Hello, how can I help you? Hello, sir. Is Miss Feilai here? Feilai, someone is looking for you. Feilai immediately ran out.
Hello, who are you?
We're delivery men from Tammy's Sporting Goods Company. Your skis are here.
Thank you.
After the deliverman left, Chen Zhao looked at Feilai. Feilai, you want to ski? How can I not ski when I'm going to Canada? Chen Zhao was going crazy. She was almost 3 months pregnant. Even if he had to handcuff her, he would not let her ski. Of course, before things developed in the worst direction, Chen Zhao would still use logic to convince her. Feilai, do you know that the lowest temperature in Montreal in November is -4? If you want to ski, you have to go to Alberta. The temperature there is already -10. Jerlin has always lived in California. It's hard for her to get used to Alberta's temperature. You don't want me to ski, right? After you give birth, Chen Zhao said. I'll make a ski field in front of my house. Chen Zhao did not care about anything else since he had already bragged. He had to stop Feilai's crazy actions first. How do you make it? With magic, Chen Zhao said. Okay, you said it. You can't go back on your word. I promise. Chen Zhao broke into a cold sweat. He would ask Carrie if she could do it. If she couldn't, he would ask the experts in hell. Just then, Chen Zhao's phone rang. Hello. Are you Mr. Chen? I'm Mrs. Peters' housekeeper. Please come over. Mrs. Peters is seriously injured. Chapter 901. Chen Zhao hurried to Madame Peters' manor. The butler immediately brought him to Madame Peters' bedroom. When Chen Zhao entered the room, a horrible stench assaulted his nostrils. The butler was prepared, but he still couldn't help but stop at the door. Chen Zhao turned around and glanced at the butler. The butler pointed at Madame Peters on the bed. Mr. Chen, Madame is on the bed. I hope you can save her. Chen Zhao endured the stench and walked to the bed. He lifted the blanket to take a look, and his expression changed slightly. There was an obvious wound on Madame Peters' abdomen. The stench was coming from the wound. The wound was completely rotten. What caused this? Chen Zhao asked. Someone came to visit, the butler said. She told me to leave, but when I found her again, she was already lying on the ground. The person was gone too. Why didn't you call an ambulance? Madame didn't allow it. Chen Zhao could feel traces of magic seeping out from the wound on Madame Peters' abdomen. The wound wasn't caused by a regular sharp object. He had to stop the rot first. If it continued, Madame Peters would die from sepsis. Chun Zhao first gave Mrs. Peter an anti-inflammatory drug and an antibiotic. Madame Peter must have been infected with voodoo at the same time when she was hurt. But voodoo was actually a virus, so the antibiotic was still very effective. Of course, Chun Zhao also purified the wound to prevent the virus from worsening the wound. Then he took out utensils and a scalpel to scrape the rotten flesh for Madame Peter. Chun Zhao used a spell on Madame Peter to make her sleep temporarily. For this, he used some crystallization potion. "Burn the rotten flesh," Chun Zhao said to the butler. The butler covered his nose and carried the utensils out. After a while, Madame Peter opened her eyes slightly. She was still very weak. However, she still had a kind expression on her face. "Mr. Chen, I thought the next time I saw you would be in the middle of a sunny afternoon." "Actually, this isn't bad," Chun Zhao said, smiling. Although the rotten flesh had been removed from Madame Peter's wound, a large piece of skin on her abdomen was gone. Chun Zhao was still treating the wound. He pulled the skin on the side over and sewed it up. "How do you feel now?" "Very bad." "It's very bad, but it's a good thing." Chun Zhao's tone was gentle. "If you don't feel anything, that's the real bad thing." Chun Zhao chatted with Mrs. Peter while treating her. Then, he took out some alcohol and cleaned the wound. A conscious patient was actually safer than a comatose one. "Tell me, who dares to hurt such a charming lady?" Mrs. Peter suddenly became frightened. "That's not God's messenger. That's the devil's apostle." Chun Zhao didn't expect Mrs. Peter to be so agitated. He quickly comforted her. However, Mrs. Peter's words reminded him of what Mrs. Peter had said before. She used to call the person who healed her legs the messenger of God. "That furry hand, that's not a human hand. The one who hurt you? He's not human, he's not human. He took out a bead from my stomach, a bloody bead. That bead was alive." "Beads?" Chun Zhao frowned. Was it Mrs. Peter's imagination? Or was it true? Chun Zhao wasn't sure, but if Madame Peter wasn't wrong, Chun Zhao had to be careful. That person might have put the bead in her body when treating her. A while later, the housekeeper returned to the house. Chun Zhao walked to the housekeeper and whispered, "You need to take Mrs. Peter to the hospital for a more thorough examination." "Okay, Mr. Chen." The housekeeper put a stack of cash in Chun Zhao's hand. Chun Zhao nodded and turned to look at Mrs. Peter. "Madam, is there anything else I can do for you?" "Young man, thank you." Chun Zhao looked at the money in his hand and shook his head with a bitter smile. "God won't protect me. Compared to God, I should be closer to the demon she's afraid of. The person God should protect the most is you, madam."
Goodbye.
"Goodbye." Before Chun Zhao left, he received a phone call. It was from David. "Hey, David. Chun, are you free? Do me a favor."
"Yes."
Chun Zhao wouldn't hesitate if David wanted to help. His woman had helped him many times. "I'll give you an address. Come here immediately, okay?" "Okay." Chun Zhao hurried to the address David gave him. This was an old neighborhood. The residential buildings along the street were all 5 or 6 stories tall. They didn't have elevators. Because of the design flaw, the lighting was very bad. The corridor was dark, and the lights in the corridor were very dim. The people living here were all poor. Before Chun Zhao reached his floor, he could already hear the howls. Chun Zhao sped up. When he reached the 6th floor, he saw a few onlookers crowding at the door. "Excuse me," Chun Zhao called. Hearing Chun Zhao's voice, David pushed through the crowd. "Chun, you're finally here?" Chun Zhao didn't reminisce with David. He could already hear the howls from the room. As soon as Chun Zhao entered, he saw a familiar person. "Why are you here?" Chun Zhao frowned at the priest before him. "Chun, do you know him?" David said. "He's here to exorcise the child." The priest was none other than Bruce, the old priest that Chun Zhao had met when he was eradicating Satanism in San Francisco. When Bruce saw Chun Zhao, he was also shocked. "Mr. Chun." Chun Zhao glanced at the girl whose limbs were tied up on the bed. "This should be a Latina family. You're exorcising a child here?"
Yes."
"David, send the parents out and close the door." Chun Zhao sat beside the bed and pressed the agitated child back onto the bed. As soon as Chun Zhao pulled off the blanket, A horrible stench assaulted his face. Instantly, Chen Zhao's expression darkened. Who did this? I heard from the child's parents that the child used to suffer from severe epilepsy, but later, someone said that he could cure the child's illness on the condition that the child couldn't participate in any activities related to sports. After that, the child didn't have any relapses for more than 2 years, but today that person came again and said that he wanted to spend some time with the child alone. When the child's parents entered the room again, they found that something had happened to the child. This situation was exactly the same as Mrs. Peters. Mr. Chen, is he bewitched? Bruce asked carefully. Chen Zhao started treating the child. At the same time, he looked up at Bruce. Why are you here? Chapter 902. As he treated Bruce, Chen Zhao looked at David. He was wearing casual clothes today. Why didn't the parents call an ambulance? The man is my informant. With that, David looked at Bruce warily. Don't worry. He won't dare to say anything. If he does, I'll feed him to Amon. Bruce didn't know what Amon was, but if Chen Zhao mentioned it, it was most likely some ferocious beast. He's also wanted, so it's not convenient for him to bring the child to the hospital. Chen Zhao took out an angelic crystal and crushed it into powder. Angelic crystal powder was very effective at dispelling voodoo. I met the same patient before I came, Chen Zhao said. It's not an isolated case. After I finish the treatment, take the child to the hospital for a checkup. Okay. Call the parents in, Chen Zhao said. I have some questions to ask them. David opened the door and called the parents in. When David communicated with the parents, it was in Spanish. Mexico's official language was Spanish, so the parents should be from Mexico. Chen, what do you want to ask them? What does the person who cured the child have? What does he look like? David acted as a translator and helped Chen Zhao communicate with the parents. They said that they didn't see the person's face. He wore a wide-brimmed felt hat and a trench coat. The collar was pulled up high so they couldn't see clearly. He was exactly the same as the man Mrs. Peter had described. Chen, do you have any clues?
Not yet.
Who's the injured person you mentioned? Sorry, I can't reveal my client's information. Not even me? Can you go to the police station and get a few bags of drugs? Of course not. So, I won't ask you to go against your professional ethics. Don't ask me to either, okay? Okay, but if you have any clues, share them with me. I don't think I'll have any more clues, because Feilai and I are going to Canada for vacation tomorrow. I'm starting to envy your life. David hugged Chen Zhao. Have fun. I will. Take me and the child to the hospital. Okay. Mr. Chen, wait for me. Bruce hurried after him. After leaving the building, Chen Zhao looked at Bruce. Why are you following me? Mr. Chen, I want to learn some exorcism spells. What I use is classified as black magic by your church. You want to learn black magic from me? As long as it can dispel the darkness, I am willing to sacrifice myself to the darkness. David rolled his eyes. If everyone could learn, he would have asked Chen Zhao long ago. David, tell this priest what he needs to do to learn magic. You have to die once first, David said.
Ah.
Is he really dead? David taught Bruce about the ways to obtain magic power. After hearing David's words, Bruce despaired. He had come all the way from San Francisco to Los Angeles to learn magic from Chen Zhao. But now, he had received news that made him despair. You should continue to be a priest. Using God's will to guide the lost sheep is also a very noble job. Chen Zhao got into the car with David, who was carrying the child, and drove away. Actually, Chen Zhao didn't dislike JD's school, at least after a few changes to the doctrine. JD's school had kept up with the times. Its doctrine was also very bright and guided people to do good. When he reached the hospital, Chen Zhao realized that it was busier than usual. Chen Zhao accompanied David and sent the child to the examination room. Just then, Four ran over. Chen, you're here at the right time. A few difficult patients came to our hospital today.
Come and help.
I'm a fake doctor who doesn't even have a medical license. There's even a police officer beside me. You're testing the bottom line of the law. David rolled his eyes. Four and David had met once. It was at Chen Zhao's housewarming party. They could only be considered acquaintances. You're going on vacation with Fei Lai tomorrow, right? I have a way to persuade Fei Lai to cancel the vacation. Do you believe me? Chen Zhao turned his head helplessly and looked at David. Officer, can I go and save people? Go. This is a righteous act. God will bless you. Chen Zhao even gave David the middle finger. Following Four to the emergency room, Chen Zhao saw a few patients. At the same time, he smelled the familiar rotten smell. A few doctors and nurses were busy in the emergency room. These injured people's abdomens are injured, as if they were scratched by a beast, and then the wounds were inflamed and rotten for a few days. But in fact, they were injured today and one of them is already dead. Right now, these injured people are in a very dangerous situation. Anti-inflammatory drugs and antibiotics are not very effective on them. Two of them are extremely manic, as if they have been infected with rabies. You and all the other doctors and nurses leave, Chen Zhao said. Huh. Now, immediately. Are you confident? I've already met two of the same kind today. Fei was surprised, but she still nodded. Ladies and gentlemen, please leave. For, what do you mean? He's contracted this place. Fei pointed at Chen Zhao. Him? Who is he? Some doctors didn't know Chen Zhao, but they were quickly pulled away by their colleagues. Let's go. Why? There are still patients here who need our treatment. They're all in critical condition. Just leave it to Mr. Chen. But, no buts. Mr. Chen has special rights in the hospital. If he requests to treat a patient, he has the right to take over the patient. If you have any objections, you can go to the director or the hospital's major shareholder. After chasing all the doctors and nurses out, Chen Zhao closed the door. He took out angelic crystals and quickly sprinkled powder on each patient's wound. In the past, Chen Zhao had to use a hammer to smash angelic crystals. Now he could crush them with his hands. Chen Zhao quickly disinfected each patient's wound, removed the rotten flesh, and stitched them up. In less than 20 minutes, Chen Zhao had treated all the patients. A group of doctors stood outside and looked at Chen Zhao. It's done. Now take them to be checked. Also, give me a copy of the report. Fei looked at Chen Zhao in shock. It's done so quickly? It's not a big problem for me. When treating Mrs. Peter, Chen Zhao hadn't remembered to use angelic crystals, so it was more troublesome. Chapter 903. Soon, Chen Zhao received the first patient's examination report. Most of the data was normal. However, their bodily functions were clearly lower than normal people's. If it was a normal injury, it was possible for the body to be weak, resulting in a temporary decrease in bodily functions. But the decrease was too huge. They looked more like 70 or 80 years old, terminally ill. But most of the patients were in their 30s and 40s. Chen Zhao could only blame it on voodoo spells. Chen Zhao was busy at the hospital a bit late. He only got home after 8 at night. Fei Lai helped Chen Zhao bring out dinner. She'd already learned from Four that Chen Zhao had come back so late to save people. While Chen Zhao was wolfing down his food, his phone rang. Chen Zhao put it on speaker. Hey, Louis. How come you have time to call me? Chen, I want to ask you for a favor. I'm busy. Without thinking, Chen Zhao wanted to reject her directly. Don't hang up, Louis said hurriedly. It's about Norma. What's wrong with her? She's been a bit strange recently. Bewitched again? No, I'm talking about her mental state. She seems to be interested in magic and has been looking for books about it. But where can I find them? I can't help you. Magic books are every witch's inheritance. No, Louis said. I'm wondering if we can let her join the supernatural organization and use that to expose her to some magic. Lend me your private plane, and I'll let her join the organization. No problem. I can even give it to you. Fei Lai glanced at Chen Zhao and covered her mouth, giggling. Oh, and lend me your pilot too. Sure. When can you let Norma go? Wait until I come back from vacation. Where are you going? Vacation? Canada, Montreal. I'm going too. Chen Zhao was speechless. You're a billionaire on the Forbes list. Shouldn't you be busy every day? You're talking about ordinary tycoons. At my level, I basically leave everything to my subordinates. Do you really think that there are countless decisions waiting for me to make every day? Lewis said matter-of-factly, and I can make most of the decisions through a remote connection. If there's anything that needs to be signed, you can send it to me directly. You can go back after signing it. This is my vacation with Phalai. Why are you here? I can arrange the best hotel for you.
Deal.
In any case, Chen Zhao had already made up his mind. As long as Phalai and he were playing, it would be fine. Phalai went back to her room to pack for tomorrow, while Chen Zhao carried Samuel. Samuel, let me ask you something. What is it? It's like this. Chen Zhao told them about what had happened to the boy and Mrs. Peter. Hildas, Samuel said. What? Hildas is also known as the 100-Nest Demon. It's a man-made demon, Samuel said. In ancient times, it was once a god of fertility and childbirth in a certain civilization. In reality, it's a deformed monster made from human flesh and blood. It needs 100 people to breed it. The person you mentioned spreading Hildas's seed is actually Hilda's son, a faceless monster, Samuel continued. Those who are parasitized by Hildas's seed will have to bear a taboo. It's called the talent taboo. Hilda's son will choose 100 people with amazing talent in various areas and then bury the seed in their bodies. It will absorb the person's talent. After the seed is cultivated, the son will take the seed out. Actually, this man-made demon is very similar to Cerberus. They're both created in a similar way, but Hildas's creation method is more complicated. Why would someone want to create such a twisted thing? Chen Zhao only felt disgusted. Because ancient humans wanted to create a perfect person, or rather, a god, Samuel said. Aren't there a lot of mad scientists in movies? Ancient humans probably had similar thoughts, but they didn't create a god. In the end, they created these deformed monsters. So, which psychopath is behind this? Or is it the son of Hildas that you mentioned? It should be Hilda's offspring's autonomous behavior. Hilda's offspring also need to reproduce, but without Hildas as the mother, they can't reproduce, so they can only create a mother on their own. That means there will be at least 100 victims, right?
Yes.
Chen Zhao thought about it. He'd already done what he could. The rest had nothing to do with him. Anyway, he had to go on vacation tomorrow. Plus, didn't Leon from the anti-terrorism department say that even without the supernatural organization, they had the ability to solve this? Chen Zhao wanted to see how he would solve this. Oh, you've watched Resident Evil, right?
Yes.
What's wrong? Chen Zhao suddenly had a bad feeling. Hildas uses voodoo to infect ordinary people and give birth to faceless monsters. It's similar to the virus infection in Resident Evil. Chen Zhao frowned. You mean those 100 people will all become faceless monsters? The ones you treated should be safe now. After all, the voodoo has been removed. Chen Zhao was still worried, so he called West. West, come over here. President, what time is it? Something might happen in LA soon. West immediately went to Chen Zhao's house. Chen Zhao took out 100 bottles of medicine made from angelic crystal powder.
Give these to our people.
If you're poisoned, take them immediately. It's very effective. President, what's going on? I don't know the details, but don't worry about it. It has nothing to do with us. President, if something really big happens, are you really going to stand aside? Don't forget that we were abandoned, Chen Zhao said. This time, I want that old bastard Leon to come to me personally. Is the situation very serious this time? I don't know. I don't have much information. Is it a person or something else? Chapter 904. The next day, Chen Zhao hurried to the airport with his family. Louis Clallam's plane was already parked at the airport. He was on the plane too. There were more people at the airport. LA's population flow had always been high. Every day, countless dream chasers would come, and countless failures would leave. It wouldn't be easy to stay here. Chen Zhao walked through a special passage. He carried Jerlin in his arms. Behind him was a group of beasts, all giving off an unfriendly aura. Just then, a familiar person walked over. It was Louis Clallam's captain. He'd already flown Qinzhao 2 or 3 times, so he wasn't unfamiliar with Qinzhao's pets. Mr. Chun, Miss Feilai, hello. Mr. Louis is already waiting for you on the plane. I'm here to pick you up.
Thank you.
Just as they were about to pass through the special passage, Qinzhao's shoulder was suddenly bumped. Qinzhao was carrying Zhilin, so he didn't want to give way. The person who bumped into him fell to the ground. It was a young man with a headscarf on his head and sportswear. Qinzhao looked down at the headscarf man.
Sorry.
It's okay. The headscarf man smiled. After Qinzhao and the others left, the headscarf man touched his lips. So embarrassing. The headscarf man walked out of the airport and stopped before a business car. A woman got out of the car. It was Lei Eng's secretary. Mr. Eric, hello. I'm Asalisa. I'm the organizer of the Superpower Anti-Terror Team. I'll also be the deputy leader of the Superpower Anti-Terror Team and help manage the team. That means you're my superior, right? Eric asked. Asalisa looked at Eric. I'm not a spiritualist, but if you think you're good at management, I don't mind letting you be the deputy leader. Don't joke around. I'm only good at fighting and killing. Eric shook his head. Apart from being the deputy leader, Asalisa was also helping the anti-terror team monitor the superpower anti-terror team. After all, Leon was already furious that the supernatural organization had gone out of control. Leon couldn't let the team he'd built go out of control again. Can you bring me to see my friends? As for the team leader, I need to confirm if he is qualified to be the team leader. I'm here to pick you up and meet the other members, Asalisa said. Get in the car. As the commercial car drove to the suburbs, Eric couldn't help but ask, where are we going? The headquarters of the Superpower Counterterrorism Unit. How remote? This is also for the concealment of the CTU. Asalisa said, this headquarters was originally an abandoned military base, but it has been renovated. I believe that you will like it there. After an hour of driving, the car arrived in the wilderness. There was a rocky slope in front of them. A crack suddenly appeared on the rocky slope, and the automatic door slowly rose up. This space was once a weapons warehouse guarded by an army of 3,000. Asalisa and Eric got out of the car. Originally, it had a history of 50 to 60 years, but after the renovation, it was filled with a sense of technology. It was just like those high-tech laboratories in the movies. How many people are there in the Superpower Counterterrorism Team? Do you really need such a big base? Currently, there are 6 official members, including you. However, your superior department has assigned you a logistics team of more than 100 people. Asalisa brought Eric to a conference hall. There were already 5 people sitting inside. 4 men and 1 woman. Each of their clothes was quite unique. Eric found a random seat and sat down. He immediately went to the black-haired woman next to him. Hello, I'm Eric. Can you give me your number? The black-haired woman crossed her legs and looked listless. Her eyes were terrifyingly gloomy. The black-haired woman silently turned her head to look at Eric.
Helis.
Eric immediately lost interest in this woman. She was wearing an aura that made people very uncomfortable. And her name made Eric feel even more uncomfortable. The 6 of you are meeting for the first time. You can get to know each other, Asalisa said, standing at the front of the conference table. Please speak to your leader. The big guy sitting at the front stood up. I'm your leader. You can call me Pan N. Just like my name, I represent the faun in ancient Greek mythology, and I'm a beast druid. I'm good at transformation magic. If any of you have any objections or think that I'm not qualified to be your leader. Pan's body began to grow bigger and longer, and then turned into a 10-meter-long python. Pan's incarnation looked at everyone. If you think I'm not qualified, you can come up and challenge me. Everyone's expressions froze. Asalisa looked at Pan. Leader, can you return to your human form? Pan N returned to his human form and sat back in his seat. Now, introduce yourselves one by one. I'm Del Tori. I'm good at petrification magic. Another man stood up and said. Petrification like Medusa? Someone asked. That's the ultimate form of petrification magic. I can't petrify enemies with my eyes yet. The stronger the enemy's magic power, the harder it is to petrify them, Del Torre said. At this time, the woman called Helis stood up. I'm Helis, the Tomb Keeper. Everyone's eyes couldn't help but focus on Helis. They were all from the supernatural world. Of course, they knew what a Tomb Keeper was. In the past, Tomb Keepers were also called necromancers, the most ominous magic. Eric finally understood why it was so uncomfortable to sit next to Hallie's. It was because of the death aura on her body. Eric felt that he had to wash his body when he got back and get rid of the bad luck on him. Do any of you want to see my magic? Everyone shook their heads. No one wanted to see the death magic up close. The death magic wasn't targeted at them, but it still carried the aura of death. It was inevitable that they would be contaminated. Being contaminated with the aura of death might cause a serious illness if it was less, but if it was more, it might affect their lifespan. All right, Harris, sit down. I don't think anyone will question your strength, Osalisa said. Who's next? Can I introduce you? Eric stood up. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric. I'm the Almighty Wizard. Chapter 905. What's an Almighty Wizard? Everyone looked at Eric in confusion. I can copy any spell as long as I come into contact with the user's body, Eric said. Any spell? Everyone exclaimed and looked at Eric in disbelief. Not all. For example, I can't copy bloodline spells, Eric said. Eric said, and according to the difference in magic power, if the magic power is stronger than mine, then I will not be able to compare with the original. If the magic power is weaker than mine, then I can release the same magic more powerful. Eric looked at Pan and, Team leader, can I get in touch with you? Pan and reached out his hand, and Eric took it. Then, Eric's body began to change, and he turned into a brown bear. No wonder you're called an Almighty Wizard. Pan and nodded. But your magic power looks ordinary. I'm a wizard. I'm not strong in magic power. Eric didn't deny it. After Eric sat down, the fifth member stood up. I'm Woodley, a support-type wizard. I have absolute vision. As long as I lock onto someone, no matter where they are, I can see their movements. What do you need to do to lock onto them? First of all, I have to get close to the target and leave a mark on them. Then I can leave them alone. The sixth person stood up and said, I'm Hans Altair. My magic is metal magic. I can control metal. Like Magneto? Everyone looked at Hans Altair. Humans can't be as powerful as they are in the movies, but I can still do some of Magneto's abilities, Hans Altair said. At the same time, he opened his palm, and iron beads appeared in his palm. I can kill more than a dozen people in an instant. For me, as long as these beads are around, it's like I have an endless supply of bullets. Unless you run out of magic power, Pan and said. Releasing and controlling a dozen iron beads at the same time must be a big test for your magic power. Hans Altair nodded and sat down again. Very good. You're now members of the Superpower Counterterrorism Unit, Osalisa said. Miss Osalisa, I want to know why the Anti-Terrorist Operations Department suddenly formed us, Pan and asked. We're a subordinate department of the government's Anti-Terrorism Action Department? Or a subordinate of the International Supernatural Alliance? You're a private organization in name, but you're actually part of the Anti-Terrorist Operations Department, Osalisa said. What about the Supernatural Organization? Them? They have completely severed all ties with the Anti-Terrorist Action Department because they've violated the arrangements of the Anti-Terrorist Action Department. Everyone looked at each other. There was a complicated look in his eyes. After all, an organization controlled by the government was not that pleasant. Moreover, their abilities are very weak. The Anti-Terrorism Action Department doesn't think that their existence is valuable. You are their replacements. Your combat power and strength are far higher than theirs. Everyone accepted this with a peace of mind. They were all rather prideful people. They all had the mentality of, heaven is the boss, and I'm the second. At this moment, Osalisa's phone rang. Hello, Minister. What's up? Osalisa, how's the Superpower Anti-Terrorist Unit? I've already met them. They're all very capable people. It won't be a problem for them to replace the supernatural organization. Very good. Now, we have a mission. A group of mysterious people has appeared in LA. They're attacking people everywhere. Currently, dozens of people have been attacked. These mysterious people will penetrate people's abdomens with their palms and then take out strange red beads.
Capture these people.
This is the first operation of the Superpower Anti-Terrorist Unit. Don't disappoint me. Yes, Minister. Asalisa looked at everyone. There's a mission. In the plane, the captain made an announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, the plane has entered Canadian airspace. We will arrive in Montreal in 3 hours. I hope that you have a pleasant flight. 2 stewardesses pushed a dining cart out. Black Ma and White Ma pounced at them. At first, the 2 stewardesses were quite frightened by the beasts. But later, they realized that the beasts were not interested in them. They were more interested in the food they provided. Chun Zhao stuck out his leg and tripped Black Ma and White Ma. Don't run around on the plane. If you do, I'll break your legs. Black Ma and White Ma climbed up, feeling wronged. They carefully ran to the stewardess cart. Sitting beside him, Fei Lai slapped Chun Zhao. Do you have to make things difficult for them? Only then will I, the master, have a sense of existence. You find your sense of existence in your pets? Louis looked at King Kong, who was curled up beside him. There were piles of fruits around it. King Kong didn't stay idle on the way either. It kept eating. Chun, is it your new pet?
Yes.
Chun Zhao nodded. It looks really powerful, Louis said, touching his right arm. I feel that Blackie is a bit scared of it. Under normal circumstances, it should be the second strongest, Chun Zhao said. King Kong's original body had been summoned to the human world. Under normal circumstances, it would definitely be stronger than the projections of other demons. However, it was still weaker than Amon. Amon was just a projection, but even so, it was still the strongest. After everyone got off the plane, a gust of cold air hit them. Although they were mentally prepared, they were still caught off guard by the chill. Chun Zhao was probably the only one who wasn't affected. Carrie, on the other hand, was even stronger. She liked the climate here more than anyone else. Abitos, on the other hand, disliked the demons here the most. He was a fire dragon. He didn't like any cold. If it was in hell, a place's climate could affect a fire dragon. Then, the fire dragon would ignite the entire area and change the climate. The princess's family was more able to accept it. The brown bear's original living environment was similar to this kind of place. There were fewer brown bears in California because the temperature here was warmer. Brown bears preferred colder areas. After leaving the airport, the car waiting for them was already ready. Let's go. I've already arranged a hotel for you. Don't tell me you're staying next to us.
No.
Louis shook his head. That's more like it. Chun Zhao didn't like a third wheel beside him. Chapter 906. Of course, Chun Zhao's worries were unnecessary. After arriving in Montreal, Louis went to do his own things. After resting in the hotel for a night, Jerlin had basically gotten used to Montreal's temperature the next day. The sun was bright, and the temperature had risen slightly. It should be above 0 degrees Celsius. Chun, I heard there's a Chinatown here, Fei Lai asked. Do you want to go there today? Because she loved Chun Zhao, she was very interested in studying China's culture. Although her Chinese level was still very poor, she still wanted to go to Chinatown for a stroll. Sure. Chun Zhao had never been to Chinatown abroad. When he'd gone to San Francisco, he'd been focused on Jerlin and her mother's matter. That was why he hadn't gone to Chinatown. Since he was here to play, Chun Zhao didn't want to miss this opportunity. But before he left, he needed to find someone to take care of the pets. In the end, he spent $2,000 to find a trainer who used to work at the zoo. At first, the trainer was very confident, but when he saw Chun Zhao's pets, he was still shocked. Fortunately, this beast tamer's mental fortitude was quite good. At least he knew how to observe beasts. After confirming that there was no danger, he still accepted the temporary job. Montreal's China City was very big. Fei Lai bought many Chinese handicrafts in Chinatown. However, Chen Zhao could tell that most of them were produced by an assembly line. Of course, Fei Lai was enjoying it, so Chen Zhao didn't bother to correct her. It was fine as long as she was happy. Fei Lai stopped in front of a musical instrument shop. Pointing at a zither, she asked, "Chen, is that a musical instrument?"
Yes.
"It looks beautiful. Let's buy it and put it in the living room, okay?"
Sure.
Chen Zhao didn't know how to play, but the zither looked beautiful. This guzheng was very big, longer than a normal guzheng. Normal zither were about 163 centimeters long, but this one was probably 180 centimeters long. Chen Zhao and Fei Lai entered the musical instrument shop. It sold all ancient Chinese musical instruments. The owner was a middle-aged man with a goatee. "Hi, how much is this zither?" Chen Zhao asked in English. The middle-aged man had yellow skin, but Chen Zhao didn't know if he knew Chinese. Furthermore, Montreal had two official languages, the French and English regions. "Do you know how to play?" the middle-aged man asked in Mandarin. "I don't understand." Chen Zhao wondered if he had met someone who said, "Don't buy something you don't understand." "Then what did you buy it for?" "Leave it as a decoration in the living room. This guzheng is expensive and it's old, so it's not suitable to be used as a decoration. I have to wipe it with an oilcloth every month. If you buy this guzheng, you're asking for trouble. The loss outweighs the gain. If you want to use it as a decoration, I can recommend you a few slightly cheaper ones. Although they're machine processed, they're all qualified, and the shape and decoration are very beautiful. What's the price?" Chen Zhao still didn't give up. Since Fei Lai liked the zither at first sight, as long as it wasn't a few $100,000, Chen Zhao felt that he could buy it. $12,000. "Are you sure you want to buy it?" the middle-aged man asked. "Yes, can you pack it for me?" Chen Zhao asked. It was rare for Chen Zhao to be so forthright as to buy something without even talking about the price. Papa. Jerlin wanted to get off the ground. Because of the low temperature, Jerlin was wrapped up like a meat dumpling. Chen Zhao put Jerlin on the ground, and she went straight for the guzheng lying in the middle of the living room. Chen Zhao reached out and patted the strings of the guzheng. He hurriedly stopped Jerlin. It wasn't that he was afraid that she would break the guzheng, but that the guzheng's strings were very sharp. He didn't want to hurt Jerlin. The little angel beside little Jerlin stopped on the strings of the zither. "Your daughter?" the middle-aged man asked. "Yes. She seems to like it. If she's willing to learn in the future, I'll help her find a teacher," Chen Zhao said, smiling. "This music score is for you." The middle-aged man placed a book before Chen Zhao. "Thank you." Thankfully, the music shop had a delivery service. After paying, Chen Zhao didn't have to carry the huge guzheng on the road. The shop delivered it directly to the hotel. "Chen, don't you think this shop is very mysterious?" Fei Lai asked. Chen Zhao looked back at the music shop. Why do you ask?" "I've learned China's feng shui," Fei Lai said seriously. "This shop happens to be 99 steps after we enter Chinatown. 9 is called the extreme number in Taoism, and 99 is also called the extreme. Extreme yang gives birth to yin, and extreme yin gives birth to yang, and magnolia gives birth to yang. When you look up, you'll see the warm sun in your heart, and there are green bamboos before you to block the cold wind. That's why this shop is the legendary feng shui land of yin and yang. If you're not fated, you might not be able to find the shop. I also fell in love with this guzheng at first sight, so I think this is the guidance of fate. Fei Lai, let's read some proper books in the future, okay?" "You're saying that I'm not reading proper books?" "Feng shui is the treasure of your Chinese heritage." "You're Chinese, and you don't agree with your heritage?" Chen Zhao wanted to cry, but no tears came out. A foreigner pointed at his nose and said that he was forgetting his roots. It was a terrible feeling. "I think that the feng shui books that you can find are basically worthless." Chen Zhao felt that Fei Lai's hobbies had become more extensive after she got pregnant. In the past, Chen Zhao really didn't realize that Fei Lai knew feng shui. Moreover, Chen Zhao was even more curious about how she could read those obscure feng shui books when she could only understand 3 out of 10 Chinese words. "Do you think I'm spouting nonsense?" Fei Lai stared at Chen Zhao. unwilling to let him go. No, definitely not. I believe you. You just don't believe me. Phalai was like a child, her cheeks puffed up. I already said that I believe you. Your tone has already exposed your inner thoughts. You don't believe me. Phalai stared at Chen Zhao stubbornly. Let's go back and ask the owner of that shop. Let's see what he said, and whether his shop has feng shui. Chen Zhao turned back. Huh. Where's the music shop? Huh? Where did it go? Phalai also realized that the shop was gone. Chen Zhao walked to the original music shop, but it was long gone. There was only a towering red brick wall. Chapter 907. Chen Zhao and Phalai realized that they really couldn't find the shop. That's weird. Chen Zhao was confused. Chen, this is magic, right?
Yeah.
Chen Zhao felt that if he answered that he didn't know, Phalai would definitely look down on him.
So he forced himself to answer yes.
Can we find that music store again? We'll meet again if we're fated. If not, we can't force it. But if the zither we bought is broken, who can we find? When they returned to the hotel, the staff told them that they had stored their goods. It was the zither that had been deposited with them. The zither's origin was unknown, and the shop owner was very mysterious. However, Chen Zhao didn't feel any malice. Little Angel didn't feel any danger or malice from the zither. Also, Jerlin and Phalai liked the zither very much. Don't think that they don't know anything. Actually, one's intuition was very sharp. On the other hand, the second choice would be different. In Santa Monica Park, the members of the superpower anti-terror team had gathered. There were many tourists here, so they hadn't found the target yet. 100 meters to your left, there's a man wearing a felt hat and a trench coat. He's the target. Osalice's voice sounded in the earpiece. Osalice's voice came through the headset. At this moment, Osalice was commanding the car and providing them with information. There are too many tourists here, Pan said. It's not convenient to attack here, but if we don't attack now, Han said. Once he sneaks into the crowd, it'll be hard to find him. I'm confident that I can kill him instantly. Hans was very confident, but Pan still shook his head. No, we don't know anything about his abilities right now. Let me do it, Woodley said. I'll go and leave a mark on him. Won't we be discovered? No one can discover my mark, Woodley said. It's not an offensive spell. All right then. Be careful. Woodley nodded and walked toward the man in the trench coat. When he was about 10 meters away from the man in the trench coat, Woodley changed his direction and turned back. Why aren't you attacking? Pan asked, frowning. It's done. It's done? That's right. Now that I've obtained his absolute vision, he can't escape my eyes no matter where he goes. Woodley said, You guys don't have to keep staring at him. It'll be easier for him to notice you guys. He's starting to move. He's gotten into a car. Come on, let's get in the car too. Don't follow so closely. Trust me, he can't escape, Woodley said. Turn right at the intersection ahead. Everyone realized that it was indeed much more convenient with Woodley around. He didn't have to worry about losing his target. The superpower anti-terror team followed them all the way to the suburbs. We can catch up now, Woodley said. Hey, he's carrying a box. Another person dressed like him has appeared. Before Woodley could say anything, everyone in the car had already seen the two people in front. Just ram into it, Pan said. Leader, let me borrow your magic, Eric said. Pan reached out and touched Eric's hand. The moment the car crashed into them, one of them didn't dodge in time and was sent flying by the front of the car. The other one was carrying a black suitcase and quickly jumped to the side. Pan and Eric transformed at the same time. One turned into a brown bear and the other into a cheetah. The person carrying the black suitcase turned and ran. Eric, who had transformed into a cheetah, quickly pounced on the person. But the man in the trench coat turned around and kicked Eric, sending him flying. Just then, there was a tearing sound in the air. Hans Altair's iron bead had already shot towards the man in the trench coat. The man in the trench coat staggered a few steps, but he still continued to run forward. Del Torre took a deep breath and shot a mouthful of phlegm at the back of the man in the trench coat. The man fell to the ground. His back had already been petrified. Eric went forward and pulled off the trench coat, only to find that it was a deformed humanoid creature. Its whole body was furry, but it had no facial features. On the other side, Pan-Gen had already dealt with the other faceless monster. What's in this box? Eric picked up the box and found that it was locked. Leave it to me. Hans Altair took the box. With a click, the lock on the box opened automatically. Everyone came forward, wanting to see what was inside. It's a bead. What's it used for? I don't know. Bring it back first. Just then, Ossolice's voice sounded in everyone's earpiece. Is it all settled? It's settled. Did you catch them alive? No. Both were killed on the spot, Pan-Gen replied. We seized a box with a dozen beads inside. According to the information we received, after these people attacked the victims, they would take out the beads from the victims' stomachs. It's probably these things, Ossolice said. Let's go back to the headquarters first and see what they're used for. It was already late at night when the superpower counterterrorism team returned to the headquarters. However, no one was sleepy. They all surrounded the box. What the hell is this? I can feel the pulse inside. This bead seems to be alive. Alive? Could it be the egg of some creature? Just then, an alarm suddenly sounded outside the conference room. What happened? Everyone stood up. Ossolice's voice came from the earpiece. There's an intruder outside. Intruders? Everyone looked at each other. At this time, the LCD screen hanging on the wall of the conference room showed the surveillance footage outside the headquarters. Many faceless monsters appeared on the screen. It's these faceless monsters. There are so many of them. They're here for these beads, Pan-Gen said. Woodley, take this box and go to the deepest safe room in the headquarters. Woodley was a support-type spiritualist, after all. In this kind of head-on confrontation, his role was very limited. Are you ready to fight? Of course, we'll kill as many of these things as they come, Hans Altair said disapprovingly. By the way, I haven't seen Helis fight yet, Eric said. Helis, do you want to try? Helis' expression was as cold as ever. I feel a huge aura approaching. As long as we work together, there's no enemy we can't deal with. Pan-Gen mobilized before the battle. Chapter 908. These faceless monsters have already killed many people. Let's go help them quickly. Otherwise, all of our logistics will die. Didn't you want to see my necromancy?
Helis asked.
Everyone stopped in their tracks and turned to look at Helis. Helis looked at the surveillance footage on the wall and started casting spells at the screen. Everyone could feel powerful magic being released from Helis' body. On the screen, the logisticians who had died actually stood up again. Then, they started attacking the faceless monsters. Eric's eyes lit up. Let me borrow your magic. You better not touch me, Helis said. Air. Eric's hand paused in midair, awkwardly. Helis, Eric is just thinking about the team.
There's no need to be so petty, Pan-Gen said.
Necromancy is forbidden. Do you know why it's forbidden?
Why?
Because the living can't cast it. Without a special bloodline, they will die as soon as they come into contact with necromancy, Helis said coldly. Not everyone can withstand the aura of death. Then I won't lend it to you. Eric retracted his hand, embarrassed. Eric, do you want me to lend you my magic? Hans Altair asked. Eric hadn't decided whose magic he wanted to borrow. But just then, the situation at the gate changed in an instant. A huge shadow suddenly appeared in the grass in front of the gate. What's that? The shadow was very fast. It charged into the battlefield directly. Under the light of the gate, everyone saw the creature clearly. It was a huge creature that looked like a female. It was naked. There was no nose, eyes, or ears on its face. Only a mouth. Its body was fat and swollen, and there were 3 pairs of breasts on its chest. Its limbs were swollen, but it was very agile. What exactly is that? Apart from seeing that it was a female creature, they had no idea what it was. Just then, the female creature spat out a green liquid. Be it its subordinates, the resurrected corpses, or the logisticians who were stubbornly resisting the invaders, they all came into contact with the green liquid. All the creatures that came into contact with the green liquid were mutating, including its subordinates. When its hands came into contact with the green liquid, they began to mutate. The windbreakers on their bodies began to tear, and then they turned into giant furry monsters with only a mouth and no other facial organs. The resurrected corpses had turned into crawlers with an extra tail and a split in the middle of their heads that looked like a mouth. They might not be the strongest, but their appearance was the most terrifying. They looked like the ghouls in the movies. Their limbs were like the legs of a table, and they began to crawl around. There were also those who used to be logistics personnel. After coming into contact with the green liquid, they actually became new faceless monsters. Shoo shoo. The gigantic broodmother let out a strange cry. The trolls, crawlers, and faceless monsters all surged into the tunnel of the base. Everyone's faces turned extremely ugly. Osalisa, call for backup. I've already called for backup, but I don't think there's much hope. Osalisa's voice came from the headset. You want to give up on us? Panon's expression became extremely ugly. I'm also in the base. Do you think I won't call for backup? Or do you think I'm not afraid of death? Then wise. Who do you think can help us? Osalisa asked in return. Unless the army uses weapons of mass destruction. But this place is too close to LA, and there are a lot of weapons hidden in the deepest part of the base. There's no way they'll use weapons of mass destruction. Osalisa paused for a moment before continuing. The other one is the Anti-Terrorist Operations Department. The Anti-Terrorist Operations Department doesn't have the ability to deal with these monsters. You were originally formed to deal with these monsters. Then what do we do? Fight, Osalisa said. Also, if the members of the supernatural organization are willing to help, we might have a chance to survive. Boom, boom. Outside the conference room, there was a violent roar. The monsters had already reached here. Director, these monsters are very dangerous. They can also infect ordinary people and turn them into faceless monsters. Osalisa contacted Leong, then form the superpower anti-terrorism unit and eliminate these monsters, Leong said. Director, I'm afraid they can't do it. They can't even protect themselves right now, Osalisa said. Osalisa said, also, if these monsters come into contact with the armory hidden at the bottom of the base, the consequences will be unimaginable. Leong's expression suddenly became extremely ugly. Then I'll organize people to eliminate them. Minister, if you want to send the anti-terrorism special forces, you'd better forget it. Once they come into contact with the mutated venom released by the Matrix, they will become the monster's companions. According to the preliminary assessment, even a rocket launcher will not be able to hurt the Matrix. Unless weapons of greater destruction are used, it will be difficult to cause any damage to the Matrix. The anti-terrorism special forces can't fight this kind of monster. So, you're saying that we can't deal with this monster at all? There's the supernatural organization. Osalisa said, them? Those traitors. Do you think I'll beg them? Leong roared. I'll never bow down to that Chinese. Never. Fine, Osalisa said helplessly. She was also trapped in the base, and the supernatural organization was her last hope. Leong roared for a while and finally calmed down. What's the situation now? It's very bad. Half of the logisticians in the base have been turned into monsters by the mother. Our newly formed team has no chance of winning at all. I also hope they can win, but the situation doesn't look good. Leong's eyes flickered. Can we seal the base? We can't. The entrance to the base has been completely destroyed, and it was destroyed while it was sealed. This monster is too powerful. Osalisa, what should I do? Do I really have to beg that bastard Chinese? You're the director. You have the final say. Even Leong could hear the resentment in Osalisa's voice. After all, no one would be happy to be abandoned in the base like a chess piece. Chapter 909. We can't wait here anymore. Hans Altair rushed out of the meeting room, but it was his action that cost him his life. When Hans Altair rushed out of the meeting room, he saw the huge mother. Compared to the larger body on the monitor screen, the bloated body in front of him made him feel insignificant. Hans Altair opened his hands. Dozens of iron balls shot at the mother. But the iron balls did not even penetrate the mother's skin. For the mother, such an attack was meaningless. You can be my first son. The mother reached out and grabbed Hans Altair. The mother made a sound. Its tongue went into Hans Altair's mouth. Hans Altair's body convulsed. His belly bulged. Everyone in the meeting room felt chills down their spines. We're dead, Del Torre said. We can't defeat this monster. Then let's retreat for now, Helios said coldly. Retreat? Where can we go? Helios pressed her hands on the ground. The ground began to corrode. Helios's magic quickly corroded a huge hole in the ground. Helios jumped down first. At the same time, she looked up. Let's go. Everyone jumped down one after another. But when it came to Del Torre, none of them dared to jump down. Del, jump down. I'll catch you, Pan said. Including the height of the ground, it was only 4 or 5 meters, but Del Torre did not dare to jump down. Hearing Pan's words, Del Torre finally gathered his courage. But just as he was about to jump down, a big hand caught him. Ah, let me go. Let me go. The mother grabbed Del Torre with one hand and looked at the hole in the ground. You can't run away. Let's go, Pan said, frowning. Del Torre was already hopeless. He would not take the risk to save him. The mother smashed the ground crazily, trying to expand the hole. But the construction of the military base was not bad. The mother smashed for a long time, but did not make a hole in the ground. West was sleeping soundly. Suddenly, a phone rang and woke him up. West looked at the caller ID. It was Leon. Hello, Minister. What can I do for you? West, I request that you immediately lead the members of the Supernatural Organization to the military base in the Northern Block Desert and eliminate the monsters there. Air. West was stunned. What do you mean by blame me? I only know that it's a gigantic mother monster. The liquid it releases can infect humans and turn them into monsters. West frowned. This was similar to what Chen Zhao had warned him about. Minister, our chairman isn't in L.A. right now. I'll tell him when he comes back, West said. West, I'm ordering you to gather your men immediately. Also, I don't want that China man to know about this. I don't have the authority to mobilize the members of the Supernatural Organization. Only the president has the authority. You used to be the president, and even that China guy was supported by you. Of course you have the right. No, I was just the acting president. I don't have the ability to lead the Supernatural Organization. Wes would not make a mistake on such a matter of principle. No matter how generous Chen Zhao was, he could not tolerate such half-hearted subordinates. Plus, Chen Zhao had never been a generous person. Unless West was out of his mind, he wouldn't have accepted Rayon's words. Then, when will that China guy come back? Leon was furious. The president said that he's going to watch the World Swimming Championships in Montreal, Canada. He should be back after the 25th. What? After the 25th? Leon yelled. Tell him to come back immediately. Minister, I can only tell the president what you said. I can't guarantee that he'll agree to come back. Fuck, fuck, fuck. Leon kept cursing the same sentence over and over again. He had never seen someone so difficult to deal with. Those monsters can move toward densely populated areas at any time. If there are huge casualties, the Supernatural Organization will take full responsibility. West was infuriated when he heard this. You were the one who chased us away, and now you're the one who wants us to take responsibility. What do you think we are? A dog that comes and goes at your beck and call? Sure, we'll take responsibility. Our president said that the Supernatural Organization is planning to disband. We can use this opportunity to do so. As for protecting the people, I'll leave it to you, Mr. Leon. I believe that even without the Supernatural Organization, the Anti-Terrorism Department can handle it well. Are you threatening me? West, do you know what you're saying?
What can you do to me?
Do you believe that I'll go to your house right now and cast a curse on you? West was going all out. He finally understood now. In the past, he had been so submissive that he had spoiled Leon. He really thought that he could order the supernatural organization around just because he was a higher-up. Chun Zhao's decision was correct. He had to correct Leon's stupid thinking. Do you believe that I'll throw you into jail? Then your whole family better be careful. West decided to let go. Was he competing to see who was more perverted? They weren't normal people. Did he really think that the supernatural organization was so easy to bully? Just you wait. Just you wait. Leon hung up angrily. However, after thinking for a long time, he still couldn't think of a solution. Was he really going to fight against a group of wizards with all kinds of weird tricks? The risk was too high. Moreover, West had dragged his family into this and threatened them. If he really offended that person, then his family might really be in danger. After thinking for a while, Leon picked up his phone again. West, I was too impulsive just now. Let's talk. West had never heard Leon speak in such a friendly tone. In the past, whenever he saw Leon would always be arrogant. He was indeed someone who bullied the weak and feared the strong. West had learned his lesson. He definitely couldn't be soft-hearted. Mr. Leon, I said that I have no choice. Our president said that he's disbanding the supernatural organization. He doesn't have the right to disband. It's not up to him. No, he does. Ever since he took over the organization, he has the right to make decisions. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.